Okay, and we're back with another episode of the Day After Podcast.
What's up, guys?
So this week we are doing something a little different than our Brant deals that you've been seeing so frequently. Um, we're actually going to be doing our Survivor season rankings. Here we are, guys. We mentioned it, back when we were doing Island of the Idols, I think, and
Yeah,
here we
Island of
are.
Idols. I was recently rewatching our Brant Steele for past versus present, our old school versus new school, and then we even mentioned it then, like all favorite seasons and stuff. We actually hinted at a lot of future stuff that we did on this channel through that.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, but yeah, so. One of my roommates recently got CBS All Access, and my one roommate that's coming in already has a subscription. So this feels like a good thing to do before I start to watch everything. I mean, I've watched a little of Bomeo or Borneo. Bomeo is a friend of mine.
Yeah, I will say putting Borneo compared to all these other seasons made no sense because it's like a different show. So
It
it's
is
like
very
I
different.
put it low only for the reason of it's not really Survivor anymore. That started it, so we have to give homage to it,
Yeah,
but it's not what we tune in for Survivor anymore.
yeah. I mean, we'll talk more about Borneo when we get there, but there are some like really good things about, season one.
Hmm. Yeah, some people do say it's the best season. I don't think so. I think they're
No,
wrong. I think that
I
they're the people that watch the first season and that's it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, some people really love old school. My one roommate coming in, he's a real hardcore lover of old school Survivor. And old school Survivor is awesome. It's just I feel like with us, and especially with how the game now, it's like the strategy and twist and everything. That's like where A, the meta lies, and B, that's like what we tune in for because we've seen the adventures and everything. Now we want to
Yeah.
see these
We, we
people
we
come.
had a lot of seasons with that old school where it's the basic gameplay. Now we want to see how it can evolve and how it can get further because we've seen so much of the first few seasons.
Yeah, yeah.
um. So
And
what we
then
did. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna explain, but
Oh yeah. So what I did to compile our list is Ryan made his list of his seasons, and then I made my own list, and then depending on our placement, they got basically a numeric value. And then we combined our numeric values from each of them to give that season its day after podcast number basically, and then we placed it all then into another list that is then how we would then rank everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this starting at our number 40 of the day after podcast, and we'll talk about kind of where we each placed it in our rankings and why it's so low or it's so high, maybe some of the moments that really stand out, if there are any. Some of these I'm not sure. Some of them are kind of uh
I'll admit, I'm just gonna say straight up why some of my memories might be vague on 35, 36, and a little bit of 37. I was very, very busy with school and then
mhm.
getting out of school. So a lot of so there were some things I had to like, look back up to be like, oh yeah, that did happen. Like, and we'll talk about one of those in a little bit. But also
Yeah,
some of these we watched like years ago when they
yeah.
aired, like
Mhm.
South Pacific or number 40. Our number 40 pick is something I saw when it came out, and that was way, way, way back.
Yeah. No spoilers, but I was very, very shocked that David versus Goliath was so low on your list. That is, in my opinion, one of the best seasons of Survivor.
There's a lot of good things. It's part of it is I don't remember it as much as other seasons, and that's a little bit partially due to, like I said, busy at the time. However, there is a lot of great people in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I did notice that your list, it doesn't necessarily your bottom sections weren't the sections that I think a lot of people consider as the bad seasons. They're the ones that people are like, oh yeah, that was a season. That's I noticed that's your bottom tier, like Vanuatu, for instance,
yeah,
and Guatemala. Oh
I
man, we're gonna
I
get it. We're gonna get into that when we get to
remember
it.
Guatemala, and
It's such
that's
a good season.
I think it was, but we'll get into that in.
Let's
But
start off with a season that I think we can both agree is not Survivor strong suit. That's why it's coming in as our list at number 40,
yeah,
and that is Survivor Nicaragua.
yeah, that one was. It wasn't necessarily a. I think it was kind of like a very vanilla season. Also, there were two quitters, and not a big fan of quitters. As I've said before,
Yeah.
it's also something where it wasn't as it was off the cups of something really, really great, and it's hard to sometimes live up to that.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of the things that they put into the stew that they call Survivor Nicaragua was a lot of rotten fish. Because I think the winner wasn't very good. The quitters, as you said, and what made the quitting worse was Nyanka was one of the biggest characters of the season. Like, she would have been brought back if she didn't quit. Like, that's
yeah,
how big of a character she was on that season. But she quits, and from that moment on, you kind of don't enjoy the show. Like, you kind of are just like, oh, this is not good. Um, Chase Rice as the runner up isn't very good. I think Marty is probably the best character in the season, and he goes out early merge.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so it's one of the cases as well as with he was a lot like Randy and Gabon for me. Like, he was a great character, but he goes out early, and then you kind of realize that there's not enough substance to keep the season afloat after you lose that big character.
no, yeah, I kind of agree. I think another thing is it didn't really have commitment to certain themes, like the medallion. That was
That's like
that
the worst. That's one of the stupidest twists. Like, it was terrible.
it wasn't necessarily working, and yeah, they got rid of it pretty soon. Also, it's something that I've kind of like come to accept with Survivor, but like especially when they have like a theme, like oh, so everyone under 30 is going to be on this tribe, everyone over 40 is going to be on this tribe. Let's see what happens. And when they drop it pretty early on, it's like, oh, so I guess that's kind of like, granted, it wasn't a necessarily strong theme anyway. It wasn't even mentioned in the title.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
I think if you have to do a age-based twist, you need to at least commit to it for at least half of the pre-merge. Like,
yeah,
you can definitely do the swap and have that still be a thing, and then like have them, start making those old school and new school relationships and that stuff. But it kind of happened pretty fast into it where it just didn't matter.
yeah,
And they have done that a few times, and it has worked. Like, in Panama, for instance, those four tribes were all divided by age and gender, and then they go back into they all kind of mix and match pretty early on.
yeah.
So
Uh, and then and also obviously because it was in the title, Millennial versus Gen X,
hmm,
the best example of that.
yeah. Yeah, but and what the thing is though is I really think that they didn't get the best representation of younger people and old people in this season. Millennials versus Gen X, I really you
There
can
was
tell, oh, these guys were cast because they are acting like millennials, and then you have like an outlier that makes sense, like, and then it makes it interesting. But this kind of just was like, oh, it's just there. They just did it because.
I think though, and I was rooting for Judd, but that's mostly because I had long hair and I was blonde. He was cool. I wasn't.
Hmm.
I guess that was Ryan's high
Yeah.
school insecurity.
I think you have to call him by his nickname
Fabio.
Fabio.
Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like most people, if you said Judd, winner of Survivor, they'd be like, "Who?"
Judd, Fabio. That even the opening credits didn't even know. They were like Judd, Fabio. I'm pretty sure during one of them they did not have one, a
Yeah.
name for.
Yeah. And I just hate that he tries to say, "Oh, I'm just pretending to be dumb," and then he's clearly doing really dumb stuff, and just not. He doesn't really explain why he's doing it any further than, "Oh, I just want them to think I'm dumb."
I mean, yeah.
And then he kind of wins out. To be honest, he does win out. If he doesn't win those last few immunities, he goes home.
Yeah.
So even his social game wasn't really that strong, and that was kind of like something that he was trying to possess. Like, hey, I you guys brought me here, but that wasn't really the case.
Yeah. I mean, we can, like, I would say the most extreme example of a Judd game or Fabio game is probably Nora, where she was
Mhm.
so crazy and everything, where of course she's going to be brought to the end. Was it strategic craziness? I do believe so.
Yeah,
uh, was it always well placed? I
no,
don't believe so, but she
yeah,
made it to the end.
yeah.
So
I think that Survivor needs characters like Fabio. They just shouldn't be the winners of the season.
I
Like
mean,
it really hurts a season when the winner kind of didn't do much. And
yeah,
we're gonna see. I think definitely our bottom half has a lot of winners that didn't do anything.
I can see that. Yeah.
They're either winners who completely dominated or didn't do anything.
Which I think is funny. I think we want. I think us as an audience want to see us struggle or want to see like incredible odds, like because there have been people that played fantastic games, wasn't always entertaining. But then on that thing, we've seen people play fantastic games, but it's just so kind of like, ooh, that's interesting, or oh shit, how were they able to pull that off? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what makes Tony's wins so exciting is that, he plays great games, but he doesn't just ride the train and just kind of coast.
yeah,
He is constantly, changing the game and making a scenario that best suits him actually.
yeah. I mean, he was one of the biggest threats out there.
Mhm.
Everyone knew it, and no one did a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, everyone thought he was going home pre-merge or at best the merge boot.
Yeah.
Like
Uh,
going into it, and everyone was wrong.
but you guessed right.
I guessed right.
You felt something. You knew it in the force.
Yeah, he was my first pick. I still remember people were just being like, "That's crazy. There's no way Tony is going to win the season."
But he did.
Okay, I think that's enough about Nicaragua. I think we expressed why it sits at our bottom tier right now.
Yeah.
Oh wait, where did you place Nicaragua?
Mine was it was low. Um, I don't have my list in front of me because it's on my phone and I'm using my phone
Here,
for
I can pull up your list.
yeah.
You want me to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
You put Nicaragua at number 36.
yeah. And just doesn't stand out as much. Like I like Brenda a little bit,
Mhm.
but I think, like where she really shined was, with the whole Dawn and the Dawn thing and fans versus favorites too.
Yeah, that's what sucks is sometimes like some of these good seasons have a character or something that's really good on it, but you can't really say, okay, well that season's great because that one character. You have to also incorporate every other factor into the season.
Yeah, which was hard with one of them in particular. But
Mhm. Well, yeah, there's a few seasons that are really kind of centered around one person, and so we're basically ranking it based on that game.
which kind of sucks. But until we get there,
Yeah,
let's talk about number 39, Figi.
Fiji. Yeah,
No, Figi.
Figi.
Figi. Little Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference, but yeah, Fiji was not really. The premise was interesting in the sense of like, oh, okay, I get it. Let's see if it's really camp life, but it just led to some badonking. Um, Also, I did find it interesting when I was like watching like the intro. Wait, 19 contestants? Someone quit right before? Like,
Yeah.
wow. That like was crazy.
Yeah, well,
Also,
and that's what caused now every season after that they have to have a backup guy and a backup girl just for this. And the season caused it.
well, I mean, better prepared, but yeah, that was crazy. I feel this one, yeah, it just I liked Yao Man. I think the whole dreams thing was interesting. I think someone that was homeless and being on Survivor was a cool idea. And let's not forget that Earl was the first person to get a unanimous vote. Granted, that final three scenario didn't kind of like it,
Yeah,
it didn't
it was pretty much vote for Earl or vote for Dreams, I guess, because he's homeless, but there's no other reason other than he was poor.
I mean, he screwed over. I mean, he screwed over Yao Man. That
Yeah,
and the jury knows this obviously, and this
yeah,
was like right before the vote and everything too. So
yeah,
it's like that's not going to look too good.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, Dream shouldn't have won that last immunity. Like, I think that's what did it, because the whole thing was if he won immunity, he just doesn't win
Yeah,
immunity, and he doesn't have
big if,
to. Yeah,
big if. Um,
exactly. So him winning immunity actually screws himself over more so than than not. So, but I do think that there are a few interesting votes in this season, as we were just talking about with the whole Dreams fiasco. And Yao Man is a very interesting character.
yeah,
I think he was a great character. That's why they brought him back for Micronesia, obviously. Um,
mhm.
I don't think we're ever going to see Yao Man again for a few obvious reasons. I also just think that Tai in Ko Wrong and Game Changers is now the new Yao Man.
He's the
He's he ta-
actually because when I was watching Fiji, I was also Ko Wrong was playing, and my
Mhm.
girlfriend at the time, she was like, she noticed me watching Fiji, and then she noticed me watching it on like our dorm TV of Ko Wrong, and then she's like, "Oh, so you're watching it out here?" I'm like, "Yeah, but this is the new season." It's like, "What?" But that guy looks the same. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of people that look very identical, especially old school, and then you can kind of see like, oh, that's the new version of that person. Like you
yeah.
can tell because they have a casting archetype list, and that when you go in for casting, they basically assign you like two of those, and then they basically compare those, and then try to create this puzzle list of who they need onto their season.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, uh, One of the things too, it's like there are things where no, that's not the point I was trying to make. The point was like I've even seen fan like intros of copycats or um identical or something or like alternate world or they've been named different things and there were a few like Malcolm Joe, they're pretty similar in a lot of regards or
Mhm.
and Tai and Yao Man is a big example. I think one of the other things that Fiji falls from or falls out a little bit, I think it's kind of funny how the guy that won was literally like a last minute decision. Granted, he
Yeah.
didn't necessarily know that going in, but in hindsight, it's like I've been to tournaments before where someone just decided to show up, win the whole thing. It was like, oh yeah, this is just on a whim. And, sometimes when it happens, I mean, good for them, but it also kind of sucks a little where it's like, oh
Mhm.
man, you think about the alternate reality where they didn't. But
Yeah. But Earl, not knowing anything, he did play a really good game. Like
yeah,
he has play he it's I think it's considered one of the better Survivor games that winners have done. Like it is very good, even though that he wasn't playing with like the best people. And I think that's the case for a lot of the great wins. Is they're usually not facing like the best players. And I think this is one of the cases. Like his only competition out there was Yao Man. Like
Yeah.
he had no other competition. So, but at the same time, most people who are just brought on in like a few days before going out there, they're usually not the best players, and he ends up being one of the ones that is. So, yeah, I think that we still have to give some kudos to Earl for that. I would have loved to see him out on Winners at War.
That would have been interesting. That would have been.
Yeah, but I think the guy's stack was so it was stacked for Winners at War. Like there's so many good guy winners, and obviously like some of the new people, they had to have some of the new winners because they want to keep the current audience. So yeah, it would have been tough to fit him in there.
Yeah.
That's why we need to go to Australian Survivor mode, where it's like 22 or 24 people.
Just so many. All right. So, number.
Wait. Where did you? Let me see where you put Fiji. You put Fiji at number 30.
Same place.
Yeah. You put it at 39. I put it at 36. So I thought it was slightly better, but still not very, very much better.
Yeah, it just didn't move me as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now we can move into to our number 38, and we got Survivor Thailand.
I'd say one of the things that kind of lowers it is that little controversy.
Little controversy? You mean big controversy?
I don't know. According to Survivor, they kind of glossed over it with when I'm forgetting her name. When she got voted out, it kind of just was gone. And it was a little bit ignored through the rest, and that doesn't sit well with a lot of people, and that's why it's a little bit. That's why it's low on a lot of people's list. Also,
you're talking about the fake merge, right? Or they pretended it was a fake merge.
No, I'm talking about when the one guy kind of like accidentally or like was like cuddling with another with the one woman and then stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That's
okay. Yeah, I blocked that part out. I'm just like, whatever. Like all I take out of this game that I really remember too much is the fake merge where Xian gets voted out, even though that's they're like, you guys are just living on the same beach. And so she goes off and tries to flip, but then she can't. And then Brian Heidick, probably one of the most infamous winners in Survivor history. To be honest, though, playing a great game. Another like he completely dominates this game because he just doesn't care about anyone.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why I just wasn't as big of a fan of him. Like, I was kind of like certain that he was going to win just by he seemed like a newer school player, more cutthroat. And
this is also the season where they realized that they need to start doing more background checks into the contestants because Brian Heidick was a porn star.
Really?
Yeah, he did some pornography before going out there on the island.
I mean, however you make money.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why he hasn't been brought back for obvious reasons. Is afterwards that this all came out to light, and they're like, oh, we didn't know, guys.
Yeah. I mean, now it's much easier to like look up shit on anyone, but
exactly.
Yeah.
So I say out of the seasons, this is my most forgettable season.
Yeah, like I needed to like remind myself who all was on it. And because I only really remember the winner, that little controversy, and the fact that Xian was in it.
Yeah.
I actually forgot about the whole blind or that whole twist.
Yeah, it's I think it's the stupidest twist Survivor's done and they've never brought it back for obvious reasons. Because why would you just be like, okay, you guys are all living on the same beach, but you guys are still on your same tribes, and it's at 10. It happened at 10.
I think it was. I don't know. I feel like if it was done differently, maybe. Because I think it was a thing of like, oh, all right, we'll see where certain people's loyalties actually lie. Because that's when the merge does happen, you see people like, like, all right, what is their next move? You see their loyalty. One of the big examples was in South Pacific, where Cochran was just like totally betrayed his other team because they're like, oh, I'm like nothing to them except like a very, very expendable number. Coach will at least bring me to final 7. So I do have to say I am glad that we are a bit into advantage, like where there's so many advantages, because in previous seasons Pagonging happened almost every season. There was only a few seasons in that early stages that a Pagonging didn't happen, because like if you go into the merged numbers, why not just win? Because usually you haven't really spent time with the other tribe. Why would you let them take any advantage? And that's fair. And it's like, would you rather mix it up and be at 7, or mix it up and possibly making it to, the final 2?
Yeah, exactly. But when you have advantages with idols and extra votes and all that kind of stuff, that's leverage that can get you in and potentially stop that Pagonging from happening.
Precisely. And it gives people like something to root for, because if they're like, oh yeah, it looks like just gonna think, why can't I think of a random person? It looks like Tyson, he's on the wrong side of the numbers, and let's say this was season 5, well, he's kind of just screwed.
That's what happened first season. Jervis and Colleen, everyone loved them, but you just kind of see their numbers getting picked off, and you know that they're not winning.
Yeah. Alas. But Colleen is interesting. We haven't really seen her. She was very likable on the show.
Yeah, I think she has no interest in coming back.
Oh well.
Yeah. So I had Thailand at number 37, and you also had Thailand at number 37.
Yeah. Like I said, just not memorable, little controversy, and not a likable winner.
Yeah. I think he played a great game, but sometimes you gotta at least be likable, and it wasn't even like he was great television. He wasn't even great television, really. It was just like you just didn't like him. Like a Russell Hantz, for instance, you cannot like him, but admit he's great television.
Yeah.
You can't. That's not the case with Brian.
Yeah. Oh well.
Okay.
Alrighty. Number 37. Survivor Redemption Island. Speaking of Russell Hantz, this one was, I think this thing suffered from being kind of like a lifetime achievement award for Boston Rob. It's just, as we talked about when we were doing our last Survivor Brand Steel, it just felt like it was kind of like, all right, he's universally known as the best Survivor contestant up until this point. We want him to win, so we're going to bring him back and give him a lot of advantages.
Yeah, and just even in cast, like there's a lot of production things that really kind of hamper the season, because a lot of them a lot of people have said like they asked people about Boston Rob in casting. Like they want, and they pick people who knew who Boston Rob was and who liked him, which is not good. Like that should never be the case, because you're going to then see a bunch of fans out there, and I'm not even sure they were really fans. I feel like a lot of them were shown like All Stars or Heroes versus Villains, and was like, this is Boston Rob. Look how great he is. And then they were like, "Oh wow, he's like a great Survivor player." And then they wanted to be with him because he's a great Survivor player. And because they didn't know the show, they didn't know, oh, we should probably not let the great Survivor player make it into the game.
Yeah, yeah. It took a while for people to learn
Yeah.
that lesson.
Yeah, but I will say I do think the first 3 episodes of this season are actually pretty good. They're not amazing, but I think that it's the best 3 episodes of the season is those first 3.
What I think is really cool, or what was the cool thing about Redemption Island, was Redemption Island, the premise behind it.
Mm-hmm.
You get people where, like what we talked about, what makes some of the Edge of Extinction so great is like you have a chance for someone that's, voted off to possibly come back.
Mm-hmm.
And, it leaves you excited because you have someone to like root for. And psychologically speaking, most people root for an underdog scenario. So like seeing like Matt or someone that's, been struggling there, or Natalie
Mm-hmm.
way back, recently, where, oh yeah, they've been there so long, they've been fighting so hard, you start to root for them, you start to care about them more.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the great things about Redemption Island.
Yeah, I do think though in them doing that, they took away a lot of the time in the game. And so a lot of the characters were kind of underdeveloped because we hadn't really seen them except for Boston Rob, who got all the screen time. And so because they wanted to showcase Boston Rob's game so much so, and because Redemption Island was a thing, a lot of people are just very forgettable. Like, there's a lot of people on this cast that I honestly cannot remember their name because they're just
Yeah,
there. They're
they're
there for
they're kind
being
of
there.
fodder.
Yeah, and the fact that I think there was 18 or 20 people on this season.
18.
18. I'd say about 14 of them are fodder,
Yeah.
which is
I,
terrible, which is just awful.
yeah. Like I said, it was a great like concept, but it kind of fell with the whole Nicaragua thing where,
Mhm.
interesting concept, but was not really executed well. Like the medallion thing could have been interesting, but it just wasn't executed very well.
Yeah, I consider this basically on the same level as Nicaragua. I do give it a little bit higher only for the fact that I do think those first 3 episodes are interesting enough, whereas I don't really find many episodes in Nicaragua interesting.
Fair, fair. I know when we were talking in the last video, you had it pretty low. Me, I think it was not as low, but kind of like, well, I mean, you have the list.
Yeah. You put Redemption on at 33.
All right, so like, yeah, I mean, but it did give us Philip. Sometimes one of the saving graces for some of these seasons for me
Mm-hmm.
was really standout characters, and I think Philip was definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just for me, I think the only reason that I think he's iconic is he's the first person that someone has said, I'm gonna bring him to the end because I know I can beat him. Usually that happens near the end of the game. This was stated in like episode 1.
Yeah.
And that is the reason I think he is so memorable, is because
Well,
he
no,
is just
the Francesca thing.
yeah, well, yeah, that took Caramoan. That I think in the first edition it was like a nothing thing, but when it happened again in Caramoan, that's what cemented it. And so I can't give credit for that in the season.
I mean, all right, to be fair, when I first saw this was like, because I kind of like seriously started watching at Tocantins and onward. And so by this time, someone just totally blowing up another person's game like that. And Francesca, like, Philip just being like, oh yeah, yeah. Francesca was doing all of this stuff. I was like, what the hell?
Mhm.
It lets us some fun moments, but you
Yeah,
know,
Yeah, well, I know why it's a little higher on your list, just because you do like Philip and you do like Andrea,
Yeah.
and because you have those two characters. But for
And
me, I think Andrea's okay. I would never be like I need to see Andrea again. I would never say I need to see Philip again. And now especially I don't need to see Boston Rob again. Like just no one on this cast I need to see again, and I think that's for good reason. Same with Nicaragua. There's no one on that season I want to see again. Once we get to the higher end, then we start getting into like I need to see this person again.
yeah, I can agree.
hmm
All right.
Um. Okay. So now moving on, we have our number 36 is the first season that we did a podcast for Island of the Idols.
Now, part of the reason why it's much higher, it's a little higher than some people might think. I mean, it's still in the bottom five.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a great season,
It's just,
we definitely have some sentimentality to it because we
yeah,
did
I
start
think
with it.
that's part of the reason why it's ranked higher on my list. It's like there was a lot of things preventing me from putting it higher on the list. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, there was one thing that was truly preventing me from putting it higher on the list. And, but I mean, other than sentimentality, there are so many great people on the show. It's just the cloud of Dan
Yeah,
just totally covers it.
yeah. I think that the pre-merge was really good. I think it was a very exciting pre-merge. If you removed Dan from this entire season, it's probably in the middle of the pack in terms of seasons. But because Dan looms so large over the season, and like he doesn't leave until right before the finale, like
Yeah.
that, and that's what does it. If he went home at the merge, I think I would have put it a little higher. But because he doesn't and he sticks around, and it's still like it's there, like it's looming over it, and we can't really get rid of it. I put it at number 38. I think I just couldn't bring myself to put it any higher.
Uh, I I think it also boils down because I was like, but Tommy, but Janet.
Yeah, there's this has characters I want to see come back. We have done our brand steals and they've been showing up because I think there's great characters that I hate to say this, I think it might Guatemala itself. I think there's a chance that people just don't return for years on end. And it sucks like because I
I
really
don't
think
think
that there's
it'll.
so many people that could
I don't think
return.
it would suffer the same fate as Guatemala because modern day Survivor, they love bringing people back. Old school Survivor, they didn't really bring people back as much. Guatemala, that was the first time they had like the champion or coach leader twist where it's like one person coming back for each
Yeah.
tribe.
Yeah, but they had the opportunity for Micronesia and heroes versus villains. There's still a lot of people that could have been coming back, especially even for Karamoan, Blood versus Water, Second Chance, especially. There are a few people that I think if they do a Second Chance too, I think there's a few people from Guatemala that are going to be on that ballot. Because I'm rewatching Guatemala right now, and it's a really good season.
It might take me a few weeks to get there, but I don't know. It was just uh, Dan. I need to rewatch it. I won't shit on it as much, but when we get to it, we'll get to it. But there was
Yeah,
just not as much likability to it as other seasons, in my opinion. Um, and I felt Stephanie was totally robbed.
Yeah, I don't know. I think once you get to it, you're gonna have a very different opinion. Because when was the last time you watched it?
This was 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think your views are gonna very much change. Because I'm watching it right now, and there's at least 3 or 4 people that I want to see you play again.
Okay. Okay. I'll give it. I mean, obviously, I'm going to watch it, and I'm not going to be like bitching the entire time. It's
hmm
Survivor.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and also I gotta say, I think that's probably one of the most dangerous places they've ever been in. There's literally howler monkeys all over the jungle. They can't go into the water because crocodiles are in the water. So, like literally one of the reward challenges was to get a cage so you could swim in the water. So crocodiles didn't come in.
I remember that.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. It's coming up. It's coming up.
Yeah.
We're on Island of the Idols right now.
Yeah. I feel it also had a pretty cool premise in the sense of like, yeah, it was kind of like for ratings, but they did a pretty good job with executing it too. I thought it was nice, kind of like seeing them in this mentor role, and I liked how, you know, some of their challenges were not as like obvious as they might seem, or yeah.
I do have to say, I think some of the mentor challenges started to become less fleshed out as the season progressed. Like it started out like, okay, I get why they're doing this. I get, and then eventually it became just like, Jamal, oh, you found an advantage. You found a note in the woods.
Obviously, you're gonna take a fucking note.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're basically telling them that old school Survivor is better. That's basically what that thing was.
I don't know. I mean, it was easier in the beginning because they're all new players and they're like, you know, still getting a feel of the game. When it's later on, you have to think of like more stuff. I think the best one was Lauren's, where it was like, guess who's going to win the next immunity challenge.
Yeah.
I think that was like a really, really good one. And one of the reasons I think Lauren is great is because of that whole, like she knew her cast so well that she was able to not only influence, but like do it very subtly and be like, oh, so it's either going to be this, she participated in that challenge, right?
Who?
Lauren.
She sat out.
Oh, okay. But like
she didn't want to win because, you know, she wanted to make sure that either Nora or who was the other? Was it Elizabeth? Yeah, it was either Nora or Elizabeth won.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, granted, I think back when that happened, my strategy would have been to do the challenge, mostly because I have a little control, and let's say Laura or Elizabeth don't win. I mean, Nora or Elizabeth don't win. I'm like, okay, if I have immunity, I'm still good.
Yeah.
Just so I can control it, or like, oh, it's just down to me or Nora. All I have to do is stage a little slip.
Yeah, I'm not sure the immunity challenge order, but I think Lauren actually wins the next immunity, and I think that the breakfast helped. So I think
choices you have on Survivor.
Exactly. Because honestly, if you eat really well for one day, you know, and then you have an immunity challenge the next day, like, you know, you're gonna be going in there better than the people who didn't eat.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I know yours was pretty low. I think mine was. Did it make it past 30? It's either.
Yeah, you're at 30. 29, and I put mine at 38.
Yeah. Such an unfortunate scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as I said, I would probably put it at like number 24 if Dan was just not in the season.
Yeah. For me, I think just based on how I have everything, I think it would definitely be in the top half.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Oh well.
You take away the next one because I know how much you'll love this next season.
All right, season 17. Our number 35 spot is Survivor Gabon. I think a lot of the reason why I enjoy it, I know it's low, and I think that's partially due to where you put it. Not judging. I mean, we've had this conversation up teen times.
Yeah,
but
actually, I placed it in the exact spots that it is right now, so I put it exactly where it is.
Oh, well, part of the reasons like I really enjoyed Gabon was one, I enjoyed Ken. Like he's one of my favorite contestants, and surprised he hasn't come back yet.
Second chance, man. I think he's coming back for second chance.
Yeah,
Because
Come on, Jeff.
he's expressed interest in playing again.
Come on, Jeff.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I really enjoy Bob, and I think he's one of the most underrated winners out there. He has also a very unique aesthetic to him, which made him a very interesting person to watch. Randy's elimination was one of the funniest eliminations ever, just because he was like laughing and stuff. He thought he was so clever and everything. And then when he did not, when he figured out that the idol was fake, his send off was hilarious. It was like one of the best, like, sweet justice moments in Survivor.
Yeah. My biggest problem is the best things of the season is the fact that they're just bad players. That's like the gimmick almost of the season is no one knows how to play the game, and they're just being like, okay, I guess that's what we're gonna do, and then they end up not doing that anyways. I don't think anyone's really great confessional givers either. Everything kind of just seems like this is what's happening, and that's all they're showing us. Just everything kind of just falls flat for me. Like there's nothing really interesting about it, and I think Sugar is just a terrible contestant. Like one of the worst contestants to make Final Tribal. She's not good. I know you love Bob. I know you're saying he's underrated. I strongly disagree. I think he's overrated.
We talk about Bob a lot. So.
I know we do talk about Bob a lot. And I know you put him as a challenge beast in our Hunger Games Brand Steel. Only reason he's a challenge beast because he was facing people like Susie. Susie was the second best challenge competitor on that season. Who was Susie was basically Sandra. So imagine Sandra Diaz Twine being the second best challenge competitor of a season.
That'd be
that's what happened in Gabon though. Like because Susie was that Sandra archetype. She wasn't very athletic. She literally in one of the challenges was so far behind. They were like, "Where is she?" Like they couldn't find her because she was so far behind. She still won 2 immunities.
I mean, yeah.
And like Maddie, the surfer dude, he should have won more challenges, but he didn't.
I know sometimes it's a cocky thing.
And then Crystal, the Olympic athlete, she did so bad because she was when she would do competitive sports, she would do a lot of doping, so basically steroids and all that kind of stuff. So then when she was out there, she didn't have it, so she was terrible.
Wait, this was like confirmed?
Yeah, no, it was confirmed that she was it was a doping scandal.
Dang.
Yeah, so that's why she was one of the worst challenge competitors out there because her body literally did not know how to handle itself. And yeah, it just there's just so much with the season that just like I could tell almost from within the first few like episodes that this was not Survivor at its best.
Wow. To each their own, but who knows? Yeah. I'd have a change of heart when I rewatch.
Yeah. I doubt it. I feel like if you liked Gabon, like some people love that it's a bad season. Like some people like watching train wrecks.
Fair enough. That is fair. I don't think it's as big as a train wreck, but like I said, that's the thing of opinions.
Yeah, I put it at number 35.
Where was it on my list? It wasn't like
30, yeah.
It wasn't like super high because I know there are better things. It's just I really enjoyed 2 people on it, so it kind of boosts it up.
Yeah, no, that's one of the seasons. Like, I'd be okay if Kenny came back, like, because I like him, but I don't. It's not because of Survivor that I liked him. I liked him because he was a Super Smash Bros. Player, so that's why I liked him. But it's not because of Survivor. And then Randy. I thought he was if I had to give him a rating on a scale of 1 to 10 as a Survivor player, I'd give him like a 7.5, which is sad because I would really give most other players on here like a 5.
Yeah, I think the thing that made Randy, you know, kind of interesting was because he was clearly like a bad,
Uh-huh.
he didn't give a shit. He
Yeah.
was just like, he was clearly a dick.
Mhm.
And, that's why it was so much fun to like watch him get voted off or like to root against this guy because it was like, he's not fun. Fuck
Yeah.
this guy. Get him off.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think Sugar is someone that I think in most cases is a first boot. So the fact that she wasn't the first boot of the season. Obviously, she's the first boot of Heroes versus Villains. Yeah. And I think that's the case that, I think there are a lot of players that some of them in their first season make it really far that are typically, like, they should be first boots. Abby Maria, for instance, should always be a first boot of a season. Even Sierra Easton should be a first boot now. And obviously, that happens.
Yeah.
Because, she's not physical, so she can't help the team. And she's obviously strategic, so she's going to be trying to get you out at some point.
Fair enough. But, that's a crazy thing about Survivor. You just never know the scenario you're going to be in.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I know it's not this one, but one coming on after, there are there's one where there were quite a few people that subdued expectations with their longevity on that season.
Yeah.
But in a bit,
Mm-hmm.
we still have one that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, we have a tie now. We should address both of them at the same time. So tied for number 33 and 34 is Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers. And the season that I am watching right now that I think is hands down a great season is Survivor Guatemala.
Yes. Guatemala was ranked at 34. I think it was like, did you go by what was like older than newer season for like the tiebreaker?
No, I didn't really have I basically consider them at the same level. They could switch spots wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one day Heroes versus Hustlers could be better. Another time Guatemala could be better.
Yeah.
So if you are watching this anytime, they can switch.
All right. So for me, Guatemala. I thought, well, granted, that was actually the last season I actually saw before I was all the way caught up. Because of how I watched everything. That just ended up being the last one that was on my list. So like, yeah, the whole reveal of like, two captains coming for like each team and stuff. Granted, I did like Stephanie.
Yeah.
That should tell you something. I really like Stephanie.
Yeah, and Bob. Honestly, Bobby John is a underrated Survivor player.
No, I think he is good, and I think that's part of the reason they brought him back was because, like, well, I mean, in Palau, their team got the raw end of the deal.
Yeah, I think that it was a smart idea for them to bring those two back because that was, and we'll talk about Palau actually in this episode. But Palau is one of the most interesting seasons because of the worst tribe in Survivor, and there was no swaps. It just was decimation.
Pagonging.
Yeah, not even a pagonging really. It was just this tribe just lost everything, so they had to keep sacrificing someone.
Yeah. I know it was, and that's the reason she got voted out in Heroes versus Villains was because James was like, she got her whole tribe eliminated.
Yeah, she has, I think, the worst win-loss record in Survivor challenges. I believe that's correct because even in Heroes vs. Villains, she goes out second, I believe, and they lost like almost every challenge up until they got rid of her.
Yeah. she just carried a curse.
Yeah, and then in Guatemala, her tribe is also the team that's losing all the time. Like, right now where I am, her win-loss record is like 4 wins and 23 losses.
Yikes. But back to Guatemala. It's just when I think back, there are like a few people I remember. Like I feel it granted I'm not the best with names, but I can see certain faces. Only like a couple, like the one guy that found the idol, the one
Gary
guy
Hogaboom, one of the best, one of the most underrated Survivor players ever. Like he was a great player, and he did tell, I think, one of the worst lies in Survivor, and just kind of kept with it and refused to, because he was a former NFL quarterback, and he didn't want anyone to know, even though Danny Boatwright had a big Kansas City Chiefs hats and football chick shirts, and so obviously she's going to know who he was. And she calls him out, and he's like, no, I'm Gary Hawkins, landscaper. And keeps up with it. But it's like, it's so funny because, like, it's obvious that he's lying. And it's hilarious. But even then, he still has a great move when and we gotta talk about Judd Sargent. Judd Sargent is like Russell Hantz if Russell Hantz was stupid. Like if Russell Hantz got rid of the strategy, that is what Judd Sargent was.
You got to remind me, what did he look like? Because
he was a big, really strong, burly guy. Yeah, he talked. He was very arrogant. He talked kind of down. He literally said, like, as long as my wife and kids love me, I don't care what you guys think.
Okay.
But he's great television, and they give him a lot of screen time. Like literally, he gets the first clue to the hidden immunity idol. The first time a hidden immunity idol has ever been introduced, he gets the first clue and tells another terrible lie. One of the worst lies in Survivor. Or he's like, or the clue said that it's somewhere above the trees or above the ground, and he tells everyone that it's on the ground, but he's clearly looking up around at the trees looking for it. So Gary Hogaboom is just like, well, clearly he lied to us, and so he then starts looking in the trees and finds it.
Oh dear.
It's a great series of events that's just so fascinating to watch.
I do remember, Gary finding it. It's just,
yeah,
I don't know.
And he plays it correctly. We gotta remember, he plays it correctly. The first person to ever play an idol correctly technically is Gary Hogaboom, even though it was a idol that it's hard to really tell if he played it correctly because they couldn't vote for him.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, there was something about it where I feel like part of the reason, other than the numerous reasons I've already given, was at the end of the day, I think it might have been, it just didn't stick out as well. Like there were some cool people. I like the guy who lost the endurance thing near the very end. Like if he ended up winning, I wouldn't have, maybe I would have thought more of the season, but just like Danny just felt like so out of the dark. And there was the whole thing where there was one guy who was like a big fan. He was a little awkward.
I think Rafe. I think you're talking about Rafe.
Rafe, yeah.
Yeah.
And like they were like, "Oh, we don't want to get rid of you, but we are."
Yeah. He was a great character too. He was another great. I would love to see Rafe come back. And then also there's 2 pre-merge boots that I think at least one of them is guaranteed to come back if they ever did a pre-merge Survivor season, and that is Brian Corden. He is so entertaining. He masterminds almost every vote in the pre-merge. Like he is controlling the game, and it. But then right before the merge, they kind of realize, oh, this guy's actually really good at this game, and if we let him get to the merge, he's going to make it to the end and win. And so they have to vote him off. But he was great confessional giver, great strategist, just a great guy. Like you liked him. Like he was just so. And Sophie Clark in South Pacific, her thing was like, I know that like the tribe was all religious and she wasn't religious, but she went with it. That's the same thing that he does in this season. He literally says, I can't go against the grain because otherwise, I'm going to be the outlier. And so he goes with his tribe and, prays with them and does all the things that Sophie Clark does in South Pacific. And it's like you can tell his mind is in the game 100% of the time. Yeah. And then Amy O'Hara was a police sergeant who had never camped a single day in her life and comes out into Guatemala where it's always at least 110 degrees out there. They can't go out in the water because of the crocodiles, and she's just hating life. But at the same time, she's just a great confessional giver that's really making you just enjoy seeing her on the screen and enjoy seeing her making it every episode. And also ends up going out kind of early because she gets a sprained ankle. She doesn't get medevaced or anything, but like she gets a sprained ankle early on and can't compete as well as you'd want a police sergeant to be competing.
Yeah. But who knows?
Yeah.
When I rewatch this marathon, I might change around, and I promise, if I think it's slightly better than what I remember, I will eat crow on this channel. And I myself am not a Christian, but I promise. But as of right now, it is number 40 on my list.
Yeah, we might want to watch that together because I really think that Guatemala. And the thing is, I'm saying it's like this amazing season. It's not in my top half, but the thing is that it usually gets kind of some flack because just no one remembers it. It's one of the seasons that because they haven't had all these returnees to kind of keep reminding you that Guatemala was a season, it kind of gets left behind. Whereas, even some of the bad seasons, they'll have a few people return later on and remind you this was a season.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. There's plenty of Survivor ahead, so we never know.
Okay, well, that was Guatemala. We still have someone else that's tied with Guatemala. Heroes versus Hustlers. Also, real fast, where did you have Guatemala? Yeah,
Guatemala.
How was your lowest ranking season?
Yeah,
which is absolutely wrong.
My list might be different afterwards. Like when I do some of these lists, whether it's Marvel movies that I've seen a bunch of times or right now I'm doing Disney movies. Even Pokemon, I do one once a year. Some things change. Some things that I was like, why is this a thing? I'm like, oh shit, this is actually really cool.
Yeah. I had it at 24, so it's I think it's a pretty good season. It's not it's still not the top half. It's just there are definitely characters that need to come back from it, and it's crazy that some of them haven't.
We'll see. Speaking of a season where I think some people should come back is HVHVH. I don't know. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I don't remember 35 through 37. I remember 37 a little bit more because it was a good season. 35, I did not remember as well. I had to like kind of look up who was in it. And I was like, oh wait, they were in this season? Like Dr. Mike,
Yeah.
Chrissy, Lauren.
Yeah. I think this was a great character season, just
Yeah.
not a great strategic season.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And this is a season that even had a Ryan that represented very well.
Yeah. To be honest, that he's kind of you. Like honestly, if you went out there and played Survivor, that's probably close to the game you'd be playing.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that.
Yeah.
Like he's one of the two people that I remembered most from that season as being from that season were, obviously Ben and Ryan. And I was a little I kind of mixed it up and I thought Chrissy was in 36, not 35, but I was like, oh shit, she's in there too. I think one of the things for me where so the concept healers versus healers, heroes versus healers versus hustlers, other than being a little bit of a mouthful and it's not as catchy, I feel like it wasn't as a compelling theme, especially since Survivor, pretty much since since Cagayan, they've always kind of like had like a really apparent scene or theme throughout it of like different types of personalities. You know, and when I actually heard the like title of it, I was like, huh?
Yeah.
And it wasn't as apparent as it was through like other theme seasons.
Yeah, well, I remember when they were doing the promo for this, it seemed like they were doing a new hero versus villains kind of thing, but with like new players, because they started with the hero tribe kind of, and they really kind of spent a little bit of time like saying these are the heroes, and they're like also here are the healers. And here are the hustlers, and you're like, wait a sec, whoa, what?
You're saying healers can't be heroes?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you talking about? And then just
And hustlers are, well, I mean, I know color psychology, and obviously we all have like a color associated with certain things, but hustlers are red. What you trying to say?
yeah, the basically like I went in kind of thinking everyone on the hustlers that there's going to be villains on that tribe, and there wasn't. Like no one was really a villain on that tribe.
All right, because to be fair, there is a little bit of a false stigma that kind of comes with hustlers. Like the title hustler.
Yeah,
you think
of
like
tricking people. Yeah.
Exactly. No, hustlers are extremely resourceful and they, do what they can to get ahead. I'm a hustler as an actor, I have to constantly, like be looking for ways to further myself or, like keep ahead, but also kind of like play by my own rules, like survival jobs. Being an actor and doing a survival job thing, let's just say you're going to have to hustle sometimes. And sometimes you have to, kind of like wear out the elastic at things, but also kind of not necessarily be sneaky about it. But you kind of have to like really, really bend stuff around. And that's what hustlers do because we're scrappy. So there is a little bit of a stigma there. So I think we all kind of understand that mindset of like, oh yeah, it's going to be heroes versus villains with some random Switzerland thing.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's a bad season. I just wouldn't say it's a good season. This is really, I think, the closest example to a new school season that just kind of just goes down the line. Yeah.
I mean, it did get to a point where it did feel like a little production meddling. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But when someone keeps finding immunity idols,
I mean, I think the first two were him finding it. Truly just him, really working hard to do it. That third one, though, it's
Sometimes,
very hard to believe because he gave up. He says, I can't find it. I'm out. And then he gets up from the log, looks under the log, and is like, I found it.
yeah. So sometimes it did seem like maybe a little meddling.
Yeah.
I'm not accusing, but
Yeah.
it just does hinder our disposition of disbelief because
Yeah.
reality TV, granted Survivor, especially modern, they do kind of leave it to other people's own devices. However, it did seem like a little production-y.
Yeah. And let's be honest, the fire making twist, I don't think anyone wanted it when it came in. People still don't want it. And the fact that they didn't tell anyone at the start of the season about the twist, and then it happened at the end when Ben's clearly going to be the one going home, it kind of just seems like, okay, well,
Production.
it seemed like they decided to put in that twist. It's what I could definitely see happening is they had a plan B in case one of their favorites is going to go home on day 38 to throw that in there to give them one last shot. And it feels like that was the thing. And because they did that, they were like, well, now we have to put it into the future seasons because then it will seem too much like we really hand-fed him a win.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me. I honestly like the fire making. I think it's a great addition where it's not just like it ends in a tie, whatever. I feel like it's a nice little like final push to like, all right, I've earned it. And as we've seen, it's really helped out some people's end games a lot. Chris and Tony, and like the Tony fire making challenge was so epic.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm saying. I think that they should end now. I think we've seen all we need out of that final tribal, out of that fire making challenge. Because I don't think that fire is going to be exciting all the time. But a vote can be exciting, and we can still get fire if it's a 2-2 tie, which happens. Like we had a lot of fire making challenges up until then. And so it's not like we're just getting rid of it altogether. It's still going to be there. It's just more exciting when they don't know that they have to make fire. So all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I have to make fire and I wasn't practicing. But that one person was practicing and their hard work is going to pay off because they were ready for it.
Fair enough.
Or we have the case where no one knows how to make fire and it's hilarious because they're just they're there for so long.
I remember so many people, I forget which season, but people breaking flints left and right, and it was like, all right, here's another.
Yeah.
But counter thing, what if they have like a separate thing for like Final Tribal where it is kind of like, it's not necessarily fire, but it could be a challenge of some sort, because I do feel like, because usually when it comes to the Final Four, there's not too much tomfoolery that can be done. It's usually, one, idols are usually not in play. Two, there are only so many options. It's either A, three against one and someone goes home. B, it's two people against each other and then they tie, go to fire. Or C, they tie and then someone changes their vote and it's like, okay, then yeah. So whereas like with even five, there's a little bit more like leeway and things like that. You're pretty limited at four. With
what if we did a little something different then? What if they made fire making a final six thing, and the winner of final six immunity had to put two people up for fire making instead of a vote?
I think final six, because I think part of the reason why they do the fire now, other than like, I think part of the reason they do final four is because of the whole like, because with six you can still, there's still different ways where that can turn out.
Yeah, but this is still giving us the fire making challenge, but we're also not making, having to win the game based on fire.
I don't think it's based on fire. I think it's like a saving grace for some people, or like it's like
It
one final like feat.
it seems like if you don't make it to the final try, if you are on day 38 and you don't know how to make fire, you're either going to be labeled as the goats or you're going to go home because of it.
I mean,
And
Tommy didn't make fire or didn't go to the fire challenge
yeah,
yet.
but they even said straight up like you are in the goat role, so you have to prove why you're not a goat. And in most cases, that's not going to happen. The only reason is I think Dean didn't play a great game for most of it. He just played a really good, and even he had all this stuff that he never used.
I think
Like that was the thing, was he had all this stuff he never used because he never had to.
I think because he was doing a sleeper game, like
Mhm.
he was so sleeper that it was kind of like hard to like really see it underneath everything.
Yeah,
Like
well, that's the problem with sleeper games. If you're playing a sleeper game, people are going to sleep on you, and
understand.
that's not a good thing actually. In Survivor, when you're at the end game, you don't want people sleeping on you. You want people to think that you can win the game.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I guess yeah. I need to adjust my strategies a little bit before I go. I mean, when I go out there, if I go out there,
Yeah,
I haven't heard any calls yet.
yeah. Did you submit for season 41?
I have not. I have not yet. I need
Yeah,
to honestly make mine.
yeah. It sucks that we're not getting Survivor in the fall, but
It does. It does. But that's what the marathon is for, to
yeah,
fill that
exactly.
little void.
Yeah.
All right. So, where was HVHVH for you?
That was my number 30 season.
And for me, I think it was a little lower, but that's because I didn't remember it.
Yeah, 34.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah. So kind of in the same area,
Hmm.
but oh well.
Yeah. You were closer. It's ranked at 33 and 34, so you were technically on the
Um,
nose. Okay. Now moving on to season 36, Ghost Island.
Again, this was one where it was a little bit of a byproduct of me being busy AF, especially during that season.
Well, I think honestly this is exactly where Ghost Island should be. I think this is the right place for it because it has a great pre-merge. It's a because I think a lot of new seasons have great pre-merges, but then it has one of the worst merges in recent Survivor that's only made better because of the finale. And so there's this long stretch of episodes that is just a pagonging and it's just boring and all the characters there aren't really good characters. like basically it just focuses on Dominic and Wendell and then a
Yeah,
little bit of Donathan. And then that's pretty much it.
yeah. I kind of like, for me, I remember a few things. I did forget Wendell a little bit.
Mhm.
Uh,
Because Dominic is such a big character. Dominic is the modern day Boston Rob, in my opinion. Like he plays a Boston Rob game. He has the confidence of Boston Rob. So I think if you're a new fan and you see him, like you're going to like him as much as you like Boston Rob back then. Like he is that person now. And he's definitely going to play again. There's no doubt that he's going to be back for second chance.
oh, definitely.
Because he has probably the best story for a loser in Survivor. Literally a tie vote. Like how like you if you lose that, you are one of the most memorable losers in Survivor.
I mean, because and we'll talk about this season a little bit ahead. Spoiler alert, but let's be
Mhm.
honest. But with Game Changers, it's part of the reason why I wish Jeff didn't answer that question of like
Mhm.
what happens if it's a tied
Yeah.
jury vote. Because when they started like seriously committing to the final three being, day 39, that was a question in the back of some people's mind. It was like, oh, what if it's a tie vote? Because, it can be much easier to like tie
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, well, what's crazy is he said that in Game Changers. They hadn't filmed Ghost Island yet.
Yeah.
So he says it and then goes out to film Ghost Island, and that happens.
And Mr. Universe was like, yep. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not even like they wanted to like get us ready for it. It just happened like that.
Mm-hmm. One thing about it that I did think was interesting, I think the premise of like, oh, cursed things, because there are some survivor curses, one of the earliest ones being the car curse.
Yeah.
But I think it was like an interesting thing, and it was a very twisty season, which people like, especially with a modern survivor. I was really rooting for the Seth Rogen looking guy.
Jacob Derwin. I went into it. I went into it like how I go in with Tony Vlachos. I was like, as long as he just keeps making it through, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah, and he was like out.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think Ghost Island would have done better if people wouldn't get there and then there wasn't a game. Like every time that they went there and then they were like, no game. And then it just felt like, oh, so I just wasted 8 minutes of my time. Because nothing happened there. Like, literally, they went there. They were like, oh, this is Ghost Island. This is scary. Oh, this is crazy. Oh, let's look into this. Let's read this that we've read like 100 times already. Okay, which one am I going to smash? That one. No game. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
And that would be it.
And that just leaves it. Yeah, and that does leave it where it's like, oh, because the brain kind of works where it's like, oh, our brains remember stuff better when there is excitement. And, if there's not many times where, there's a challenge, whatever, or a game to play, then we're automatically going to be like, oh, yeah. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
no, it's not a very good season. You do not want to know though, this has the least amount of confessionals in any season of Survivor.
Really?
Yeah. And that's why so many people are so underedited. That's why you only really notice Dominic and Wendell.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah, like Sebastian. Why was Sebastian not the next Aussie?
I don't know. Like, he did kind of give off an Aussie vibe. Like,
yeah, and like people loved him out there. It wasn't, but like we didn't see it on TV. He was just there. Like and Purple Chelsea makes it super far in the season. Do you remember Chelsea Walker at all? Because she had like 4 confessionals in the entire season, and she gets like 7th place.
Doesn't ring the bell.
Yeah, no. Maybe I can look up the confessional count real fast. Because it's abysmal how bad of a confessional she's had. Chelsea. Yeah, she had 4 confessionals, and she got 8th place. 4 confessionals, and she got 8th place.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna look when I'm watching that season. I'm gonna keep that in mind. But
and I think she won 2 immunity challenges.
Even so.
Yeah, and I think her confessionals would be when she would do really well in immunities, and then they just didn't give her anything else. Like they were like, okay, good job for doing some immunities.
That's weird.
Yeah. But yeah, and a lot of that comes from Ghost Island. They gave it about 10 minutes every episode to just one person just walking around being like, oh, this is scary. This is spooky. Okay, time to live here.
Oh well. Who knows? Maybe they'll do something with Ghost Island better next time. But
maybe I feel like I think it's gonna die just as it should.
A double ghost.
Yeah.
Double ghost.
Okay. Let's see where you had Ghost Island. You had it. It's your number 35.
Yeah,
And
roughly the same thing.
yeah, and I had it at number 28, so I put it a little higher, and I mostly put it there because of the pre-merge.
Hmm. All right.
Okay. Uh, and now I
Next up,
feel yeah, I feel like this next one, a lot of people were expecting it to be a lot lower, but I have a little bit of love for it. I don't know
I
about you.
too. I enjoy One World as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Uh, 31st is that's going to be One World Survivor 25.
Yeah.
Um, I thought
24.
24. Yeah. For some reason, I always mix that up. Like I always remember Philippines as 25, but for some
Yeah.
reason, I'm like worlds apart.
Well,
25 is what.
what helps me is so during this time, it was always a dominant winner on the even numbers. So Boston Rob 22, Kim Spradlin 24, and John Cochran 26.
Huh.
Those were always dominant winners, and then in between them were like the sleeper threats.
I think it might have been a thing of I should remember things because I can remember where I was in life when I've seen these seasons, and I
Mhm.
know distinctly. I watched one episode during this like little vacation that the drama club does. It's like vacation slash competition. I
Mhm.
remember watching an episode there, so I should automatically know that it's 24
Mhm.
because the latter season always came, in spring.
Mhm.
Anywho, um, I thought they had a lot of interesting people. Monica Culpepper, Kimmy, Kat, and how can we not forget Colton?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing sometimes to forget Colton.
I mean, yeah, but he seemed like an interesting heel for the
Yeah.
season, even though he was medevaced and like there's a little gray area if it was like truly like like even Jeff was like the very next time he came on was like we brought back a quitter and he quit again and
Mhm.
I don't know. I think they painted him up especially in the TV guide little briefing thing to be
Mhm.
a bit more of a big deal.
Yeah.
But he was a pre-merge elimination and
Yeah.
medevac.
Yeah. Colton. Yeah, I never want to see him on the screen again. Like he's just not a
He's never.
very good. He's not very like it was interesting at first when he was out there because he was one of the people who was out of his element, and you could tell like he loved Survivor. You could still tell he was a
Oh,
fan of the game, but the thing is sometimes some fans shouldn't go out there, and I think this was the case with him. And I think the vote out in the pre-merge with Bill, where the guys win immunity and then say, "No, we're going to go to tribal council instead."
that was a little fucked.
That was yeah, and just that whole episode was just terrible because Bill obviously goes out there, but also during that tribal council, uh, Colton says that he doesn't really talk with people of color. Um, and like that it brings up this whole thing with
Yeah.
Bill, and and then but then he's like, well, no, I have black friends, and then he says, yeah, my housekeeper. Like that's just like the worst thing he could have said.
Well, fuck.
Yeah.
Um, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. Literally just terrible.
Shit.
Um,
Like, I think it's just like overshadowed. I kind of overshadowed that part because,
because he gets medevaced, I think, in like the next episode or like the episode after that.
yeah, like he was a pretty early boot.
Yeah.
For me, because granted, he wasn't the best player, but I really enjoyed Tarzan.
Hmm.
I also found it funny that production was like, we're gonna have two Tarzan people that have that as their kind of identity on the same
Yeah.
season. It was like, um, Tarzan was a lot of fun. Troyzan, I think he was much better this season than he was in Game Changers.
Yeah,
but
if you ever rewatch it, he is actually really entertaining while he's in the game. Like he is the only other person that can beat Kim. And he is the only person that targets Kim in this game.
Yeah.
and if it wasn't for that one guy with the high-pitched voice telling Kim Troyzan's plan, Kim goes home. Because Troyzan was going to play his idol, everyone was going to vote for Troyzan, and Kim was the target. So imagine that scenario. Oh, his name was Jay. If Jay didn't tell Kim about the plan, Kim is not the winner of One World. And I think that just goes to show, I think this cast is one of the most inept casts in terms of strategy in the game's history. The only one,
I do think that's why Kim kind of like is so prominent, and like why like she played such a good game. It's because not everyone was as up to par. So I can see that.
Yeah, it's the same as Earl Cole, for instance. Like, Earl played a great game, Kim played a great game, but you also have to remember who they're playing against. Same with Boston Rob, for instance. He's playing with newbies, and this was the case. It was like everyone out there, except for Troyzan and Kim, did not know the game. And they've said it, like, literally, they would talk at camp, and no one knew about Survivor really in the merge, except for Troyzan and Kim. So, like, how are you really supposed to say, like, that they know how to play the game? Because they haven't seen it.
I mean, I think that's the thing. Sometimes some casts just pick it up better than others, and I feel One World, they did not. Also, about the One World thing, we're forgetting, because the whole, like, premise was, they're all going to be on one beach. It wasn't even like a tribe swap thing or anything. It was like, just one beach, and they abandoned that idea pretty soon. Which
well, it was weird because, like, they still technically only had one beach, but they had two camps, one on the beach and then one like into the woods a little bit that they could kind of just like walk to.
But I mean, part of the appeal and like the intrigue of that season was the fact of like, okay, so they get to know these people a bit more before the merge, or like, with the whole like idol thing where if you find it for another team, you have to gift it to someone else. That was kind of like interesting.
You know what would have been a really interesting thing that they could have done? Not give them tribes on the first tribal council. Imagine if they had 20 people going to tribal, all having to vote someone out. Like it would be pandemonium, but it would be amazing pandemonium.
I mean, we're gonna talk about something similar later, but yeah, I mean that would be crazy.
And then immediately do a tribe swap and then have those tribes. But that would have been such an interesting way to start the game because everyone can go home right away. And maybe instead of having, still have immunity, but have a man win immunity and a woman win immunity. Yeah, and have that be what started the season. That would have been so interesting.
Yeah, because they always, especially when it comes to like bigger immunities in the beginning, they tend to do double immunity that way every now and then.
Yeah, so I think that would have been really interesting to do, and I want them to kind of bring that twist back, but just tweak it. Like they like it needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
So I had that at my number 34, and you had it at 28.
Yeah, sounds right. Yeah, I also like Kat a little bit. It could be the whole blonde thing.
It probably is because I don't think she's I don't think she's a very great player at all. She was very annoying.
We'll get to not in this episode, but Blood versus Water, her stock did go down for me. But she
Yeah.
did deliver a really good line.
Yeah, it's a line that will live in infamy.
Yeah, haunts me. But
Yeah.
okay, so we're going to number 30. Take it away.
Okay, so this is another tie. We have another tie. This is a three-way tie actually between
Mhm.
three seasons. So this is technically our number 28, 29, and 30 are these seasons. I'm gonna just list them off and then we can talk about them. We got Caramoan, Marquesas, and Borneo.
Yeah. Um, Granted, I just started rewatching uh Borneo.
Hmm.
I kind of stopped for a little bit because, well, one, we were making this list, and two, my PS4 where we were streaming it, well, not my PS4, the apartment's PS4 needed to go to the hospital.
Oh.
Back, it's good, it's functioning, but uh, it's just, I think yeah, we were talking before this where um, Borneo is nowhere close to like what Survivor is now, other than, obviously, buffs slash bandanas going to tribal and challenges. But even then, the challenges were a bit more survival based. Like,
Yeah.
first individual immunity challenge was hold your head underwater. And they've done more advanced versions of that later on, but like more suspense. This one was just kind of like a
Yeah.
backyard game where you could
Yeah.
do it in the pool.
Yeah, watching the first challenge in Borneo is so weird because you don't have Jeff even talking. It's literally just music playing in the background as they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like it's so like surreal kind of watching it.
Well, I mean, the thing about Borneo is everyone was still kind of like figuring out what the show is. Like
Mhm.
Jet and my one my friend that's moving in, who's a big Survivor fan, he was telling me to like watch out for it, like when rewatching that his Jeff's kind of like hosting is very different the first few seasons as opposed to what it is now. Granted, obviously he's been doing it
Mhm.
forever now, but like the show was still trying to figure out how it was going to play on for future seasons. It was not only just a social experiment, but an experiment for that show. These were like the original guinea pigs.
Mhm.
Um, and I think one of the great things and what helped, Survivor go on for 20 years is that first cast and some of the great people that were in it.
Mhm.
Like, we can't forget Sue. We cannot forget Rudy, and we
Mhm.
certainly cannot forget Richard Hatch.
Yeah, I mean the snakes and rats speech transcends reality TV. Like it's not just a big Survivor moment. It's a
Yeah,
big TV moment. Like it's something that like a lot of people who don't watch Survivor, if you tell them about the snakes and rats speech on Survivor, they usually know even if they don't watch it.
hmm yeah. Um, and sometimes it would, it was simple TV back then, which I think a lot of nostalgia things are pretty simple.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the things that kind of give it its charm as well.
Hmm. Yeah, no. Like it was hard to really place it for me because I have it kind of low. It's not that I think it's worse than some of the seasons that we're going to talk about later.
Not at all.
It's just it's not Survivor.
Yeah,
It's that prototype, and it's evolved so much that it's really hard to place it, in that top echelon of what Survivor is.
yeah. I mean, understandably so. Like, yeah, I think that's one of the things with Borneo. Australia, they did find a little bit more footing with it, but you know, that's what kind of gives it its charm in a sense to a lot of people. It was
Hmm.
simple. It was like, bare
Yeah,
bones a little bit.
yeah, yeah. Well, with Australia, I think Borneo and Australian Outback are very different still because people in season 2 got to see season 1 and they got to see, oh, this isn't just a social experiment, it's also a game.
A game.
Yeah.
And people in season 1 kind of struggled with that in the beginning, where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, so we actually have to try and win this game for $1 million?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, they wanted it to be, the nicest, best person, the hardest worker to win the season.
Nah, fam.
Which isn't what Survivor is, which I placed it as my number 32. Which, some people might say it's low. I think that's, it's
it's understandable for, like a season. Just because it was first does not mean it was the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like the first one to do it. Part of the reason why it was higher on my list is because, one, some of the cast, as well as it's something where it started it all. And if it wasn't for, the show being so great to begin with, when it was still in that prototype thing, we wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, no. Glad Borneo exists, but still.
Yeah.
Okay, let's where did you have Borneo?
I think it was definitely in the 20s.
24. You got it at 24.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, do you want to talk about Marquesas?
Yes, Marquesas. It is the season that gave us Boss and Rob. Now, granted, watching this season, I already have seen every other season that had Boss and Rob. So I kind of like knew who he was. Mm-hmm. I didn't like him as much in Marquesas, personally. Mm-hmm. For me, my favorite character, or my favorite person, was actually Pascal.
Pascal, yeah.
I think he was very likable. I think we're talking about speeches. Mm-hmm. His one speech, and I think about it a lot, especially because of quarantine and you're around certain people. And then when you think about like relationships, of like how much time you spend with someone, like let's say, oh, I'm out with a girl and, like we see each other maybe 2 days out of the week, like, and then like on the flip side, let's say, oh, there's this another girl and we see each other every day because she lives, like around the corner or like same neighborhood and everything. And like, my relationship with the girl that lives closer by would be much, much more developed as a result, because you're spending so much time. Mm-hmm. And also, he was the first one to
purple, yeah,
which sucked.
Granted, yeah, and it was before the fire making twist too, so he goes out because they didn't really have a solid plan on what happens at a Final Four, and there's a tie.
Now I knew that the first time it ever happened was in season 4. I just didn't know with who or when.
Yeah. And
then when it was like near the very, very end, I'm like, oh wait, is it happening at Final Four? And it kind of like threw me off. But yeah. Also, I feel like there was a lot of it was the first season that gave us the tribe swap, that little twist.
That's I think that's in Africa.
Was it in Africa?
Yeah, I think Africa had the first tribe swap.
Maybe. This is around the same time frame, but
yeah, it's literally one season apart. Yeah, Africa had the first tribe swap. Yeah.
Whoops. Sorry, guys. I think what made it stand out was Jeff's little thing where it's like, this was something that was already planned. This was not like, I think how it was implemented was why it was so impactful for me for an earlier thing, was because here you had, a team that was down on their luck, and then this is thrown at them and it's like, rest in peace.
Yeah.
and like Jeff gave a little speech, and I think like a moment like that where it's like, all right, these people, they got to try. I liked like the scenarios where it looks like some people are screwed and see them overcome it. But
Yeah, and I think Vesepia is a very underrated winner of Survivor. I think if she, I think because she wins, it paves the path for the Michelle Fitzgeralds of the world, the Natalie Whites. It paves for the sleeper threats to really be a viable strategy. Because before, it was just, you either had to be extremely strategic or you had to be a really nice person.
yeah, yeah,
And those are the only two ways you could win. And now she comes along and says, well, you don't always have you just need a mixture of everything. You just have to make sure you get to the end. And
yeah,
then make sure that you're sitting next to someone that can't beat you.
precisely. And I feel, and as you know, me being a fan of the sleeper threat strategy,
Mm-hmm.
it does help a
Yeah.
lot. Um,
Yeah.
and she is one of the trailblazers.
Yeah. And she's one of the first women of color to win
Mhm.
Survivor. So just that alone, she's in the history book for us.
Help. Well, I
So,
mean, E- Ethan is Hispanic, right?
no, he's Caucasian.
Okay. Uh, sorry if I'm seeming so insensitive. Just then straight up, first POC to have one survivor in general.
Yeah. No. Ethan is Jewish. I don't know if there's many
Oh yeah,
Jews
I
in
remember.
this
I remember Ethan.
because of the
How
ham.
can we
Big
not
Tom
forget?
and his
He
ham.
can't have it. He's God, those three. Uh, but yeah, uh, Marquesas. It's one of the seasons where I don't have too much to say about it, but
Mhm.
I just enjoy it. You know.
This is really a middle of the pack season for me. It's pretty good. But it's not spectacular in really
Yeah.
any case. But it doesn't like fail. Like there are seasons that really fail on a lot of fronts. Marquise doesn't really do that. It's like that. I think this is really the blueprint for a standard season of Survivor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I put it as my number 25.
Or was it for me? I think it was a little. It
You
was
put
either.
it at 31.
Okay. So
Mhm.
yeah, sounds about right. All right, and then the final one of this triad of tying and
Mhm.
late 20s. That was horrible.
Yeah, we got a season that I know that Ryan really loves a lot. It's Survivor Karamoan.
Yeah, and honestly, I can understand why it does have Philip, and like the fun editing thing at the very very end where it's like get rid of your enemy before they get rid of you.
Hmm.
uh I also liked it because one, it gave us, as a huge fan of like Cochran, because like he was my favorite contestant for the longest time, and to
Hmm.
see him win, that like really really got me. Also, it had Andrea, it had Malcolm, they had a lot of good players that I was excited to see again. Also, it was nice to see this was also a little bit of angsty high schooler Ryan.
Hmm.
The Popular Kids Alliance being like, oh hey, yeah, like we're gonna target them.
Hmm.
I don't know, something interested me about that.
Yeah.
But
I guess my biggest gripe with Karamoan is I think it has maybe the worst pre-merge of Survivor. Like it is abysmal. It is like sure there's the Francesca vote off that happens in the first episode. But even that vote off wasn't exactly great. It was a great moment of being like, wow, she's a second time first boots. But the vote itself wasn't very interesting. And then after that, it was just fan, 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 fan. except for the Brandon Hance, getting removed from the game, which was a terrible moment. And yeah, it was very, very not interesting to watch. And most of the fans, I don't think were really fans. I think they were recruits. But because they were first time players, they were just called fans.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, you could slap that on, but like even the original one, like you knew that Ian was a fan. You
Yeah.
knew because like he was gushing when he saw everyone. And I think one of the great things about it too was that they brought someone that was a fan. Like for a story for someone like him, it was nice seeing like a fan become a favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I just hated Eric's editing in this season too. He kind of got the purple edits, and he shouldn't have. Like he should have had way more screen time. But
Yeah,
like even the castaways were saying, if he didn't get medevac there and made it to the end against anyone but Cochran, he was going to win. Like, so why didn't we get good editing from him? Like, and he had such a great story of being that fan, as you were saying, but it was like we knew that was the storyline, but they didn't show it really, except for the first episode.
fair enough. Yeah, and then there was that controversy with how when they did have the reunion, no one that was pre-merge was there.
Yeah. Well, they were there, but they weren't on the stage because
Yeah,
they couldn't have Brandon Hance there.
it it that was a very simple solution. You know, just set one less chair.
Yeah, exactly. They've done that in new seasons. Because in David versus Goliath, Alec Merlino was in the merge. He was a jury member, but he got banned from being at the live reunion because he posted pics about Survivor and all this kind of stuff before he was allowed to, pretty much. And so he got banned from it. But they didn't just say, okay, no one from the merge is allowed to be on the stage. They just didn't have him there. Same with Dan. Dan just wasn't there. In Island of the Idols.
It's funny, the Simpsons episode where they make fun of like Survivor. They made fun of like First Boots and how it was like, oh, we're not going to be asked any questions or anything or whatever. We won't get any hugs from first place or whatever. And especially with like newer Survivor seasons, they do kind of like people that are like early boots, they don't give much love to anyway. That's one thing I liked about old Survivor when it came to the reunions or the older reunions, because they would kind of like at least go through everyone and be like, hey, yeah, this person has been doing this now, or like, what was Survivor meant to you?
Yeah, and if sometimes people would be pairings that were pre-merged and they would talk, and to shorten time they would have them both answer the questions like at the same time, and that was fine. But yeah, no, it definitely seems like nowadays if you don't make the merge, it sucks for you.
I mean, because it's more commercial than actual finale.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't watch this stuff on CBS All Access, or not All Access, if I didn't watch it on like CBS, I would have been disappointed because like it's like 22 minutes and I'm like thinking, this is supposed to be an hour-long show. That's literally 38 minutes of commercials.
Exactly.
Anyhow.
Okay.
But overall, story.
Yeah, it does have some good merge votes, like especially the Three Amigos tribal. Like we can't talk about Caramello and not bring that up. Like that was one of the best tribals of modern Survivor. So
I agree.
So you had Caramello at 25.
Okay.
And I had it at 31.
Decent. So like it's hard. When we do these lists, it's always like, what separates this? What makes this season not as high as others? And so like when I'm like, really, I said that, huh?
Mm-hmm. I based it off of what I rewatch episodes again. That is really what I went off of. Like the ones that I put lower, I have no interest in rewatching those episodes.
Fair.
And then the middle pack, it's like there are some good episodes in there that are worthy of me wanting to go see it again. And obviously the top tier is like I'll just rewatch the season again because it's that good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we still have so many to go, and we're already almost 2 hours in.
we have 5.
We got 5. Okay, well, we're about to talk about one that's going to be a while, so strap on in.
Get some snacks, get some coffee, or like he's drinking Monster.
Yeah.
Anywho, so next for 25, we have Survivor Worlds Apart. White collar versus blue collar versus snow collar. This one I enjoyed.
Wait, Worlds Apart? What are you talking about?
Oh no,
Vanuatu.
Vanuatu?
Yeah. Yeah, we just finished 28, 29, and 30. We're now on 27.
27? Oh, so shit.
Yeah, no, we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to go.
Vanuatu!
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you always sleep on this season. You always just want to skip over it.
So much that I slept on our 26. Wow.
Yeah, you can't sleep on 26. Wait for us to get to that one.
Okay. So
yeah,
Vanuatu. It is a season where I have a little bit more appreciation, like, talking with you with, and then when I step back and realize, like, wow, yeah, the fact that Chris was supposed to probably be pagonged after all the rest of the guys have fallen, but he somehow makes it. He's not, or at least he's unlike any other Survivor contestant, especially during that time. Like, when I looked at him, if I didn't already know that he won, I wouldn't have guessed it. Even watching, I was like, this was the guy that won, right?
Yeah.
Because their DVD covers, they need to be a bit more inconspicuous with it, because it's always winner is plastered right in the middle.
Yeah. Well, this is like, the Survivor does this all the time. Even at Winners at War, they showed Tony so much. Literally, the intro to Survivor Winners at War had something that looked very much like, I'm pretty sure it was literally Tony standing there with his tattoos. Like, you could see his tattoos in the intro.
Oh my God.
And Tommy Sheehan, if you were on Facebook at all season 39 and you got an ad for Survivor, you saw Tommy Sheehan. So if you ever are going to make a Survivor pick, like a week before the season starts, and you get an ad for Survivor, and it shows the person, that's probably the winner.
Just look at the promo stuff.
Yeah, like.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, Vanuatu. I will say, I am biased. Obviously, I think it's a really great season. I will though say, the pre-merge is dog shit. It is not a very good pre-merge. There are these 4 guys on the season that you cannot separate them. Like they look the same. They literally they cast 4 guys who all look the same. And luckily they all go out pre-merge, so it's like you don't really see them that much, but like that's a huge section of it is those 4 guys. But then you have, in my opinion, 2 pre-merge guys that I think are some of the best pre-merge boots in Survivor. Actually, one of them makes the merge, but at that time, if you're the merge boot, you don't make jury, which is kind of shitty. And that guy is Rory, one of the most underrated villains of Survivor. Like, he rubbed his tribe the wrong way the entire time. He gets swapped into the minority, somehow manages to convince the tribe of girls to not vote him off, and then becomes like a hero on that tribe, winning 2 immunities for them to get him into the merge, only to then be ousted by those same girls. Yeah. Like, it's a crazy story arc, but it doesn't matter because he didn't make the jury.
Yeah.
And I think if he made the jury, I think he might. I don't know if he would have made Heroes versus Villains, but I think he would have been an alternate for the guys. Like,
Probably.
because he was really good. And then the guy who's the first jury member is Sarge, who is also very loud, kind of. He's like a Big Tom. He's basically Big Tom, but kind of more like military. Um, and he's another great character. Everyone loves him. He's a great guy to just be there. Um, and he's so much fun. This other guy, I forgot his name. I think his name is like uh Bobby or something like that. But he's kind of a fatter, kind of redneck kind of guy, who's just having a great time. He's a great confessional giver. Great, everyone loves him. It's just so many great characters are in this season that no one talks about anymore.
I think for me, I kind of remember Rory. I remember the man that didn't only had one leg. I remember Chris.
The guy who had one leg, that was a Chad.
Chad. I remember
Yeah.
Chad. I remember Amy and Eliza,
Mhm.
and I kind of vaguely remember who was voted off first because I was a little. I think I was a little surprised that he was the first vote.
Yeah, because he was a bit he wasn't your typical first boots.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like, I'm not sure why I don't remember it that much. It could have been.
I think it has also one of the best moments in Survivor when literally they are filming people doing their confessionals, and then a volcano is going off, shaking the entire island. And we get to see their people's live reactions to basically this entire place just getting rattled. It's crazy.
I need to rewatch that. I totally forgot about that, which is weird because stuff like that was starting to. Because the point I was watching that was, it was only like a month later after like my freshman year, and near the end of my freshman year, there was like earthquakes and stuff happening. Like I slept through. Weird that I didn't put two and two together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really think though that the merge portion onwards is great television from every vote outs. I think and just Chris. Chris is honestly great confessional giver, great strategist, great character. I think he has everything that you really want in a Survivor player, but don't realize that that's who you want to win. And yeah, literally in the first episode, he says that he's so glad that he gets to work with the guys because you know what guys are thinking. And then he ends up having to work with the girls, and then it figures out that you just gotta get in good with them, and really pull at their heartstrings, and then they'll do what you want, and that's what he does. So he literally shows you how to play with guys and how to play with girls.
I might have to take some notes.
Yeah, and he should have been the first boot. He literally should have been the first boot of the season. He completely fails the first immunity challenge. He's the reason they go to that first tribal council. But because those four really fit guys kind of isolate themselves, and then you got the Fat Five, and that's what they called themselves, the Fat Five, and then they pull in Chad, and then they become the Six, and they just control that tribe.
That's why you got to be careful with why you got to be careful with popular kid alliances.
Yeah. And I've only talked about the guys on this season. Now we got to talk about the girls on this season because they are just as good. Amy Cusack should have been on Heroes versus Villains. I will hold on to it because she was a great villain that season. She 100% was the Kim Spradlin of the season. Like really, Chris was Troyzan, Amy was Kim, and we just saw first what happens if Troyzan won. And that is what happened in the season. And Amy wins 2 immunity challenges that season. I think she even wins a reward as well. She's very dominant, puzzle, physical. She's a great challenge beast. And a great character. Like she was giving great character confessionals, really orchestrating that women's alliance. Twyla, another great character. Terrible. I mean, I don't even know. She might be a great strategist. Like, it's hard for me to honestly say because she got so much flack on the season. But
she do. I don't remember Twyla.
She swore on her kid's life.
Oh.
And then betrayed it. Yeah.
Never do that in general.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what costs her the game. Because people were going to vote for her going into Final Tribal because they felt like they had to, or because most of the jury was the females, and they felt like the only way to justify that female alliance was to vote for her. But then, Twyla kind of didn't do a good Final Tribal, and Chris does the best Final Tribal, or at least one of the top 5 Final Tribal counter performances in Survivor. Like, he tells Julie that he really did treat her like a little sister, and he really feels that way. But he couldn't have beaten her at the Final Tribal. He knew that, so he had to let her go, and it was the hardest choice that he ever made. And he really conveyed all of this, very heartfelt. And literally every time someone got there, he just had a heartfelt message for that person, and it changed their vote.
Damn.
Like, that's how crazy of a game Chris played.
Just hearing you talk about it, because you definitely know more about the season than I do.
Because I just watched it, so I had like all of this is just fresh in my head.
It's fresh in your mind. That's kind of like with me with Borneo a little bit, but you just talking about it, like the hype you give it. I give you props because it is something where it is a season not many people talk about. Not many people come from, and who knows, maybe kind of like with Guatemala, when I give it that second watch, it'll go a little higher up on the list.
Yeah, because the only people who have returned from the season have been Amy and Eliza. Amy went out pre-merge in Micronesia, and Eliza was the first jury member of Micronesia. So, and Eliza's remembered almost just for her jury faces, not even her Vanuatu performance, where she played a group she was so fun to watch in Vanuatu.
Even in Micronesia,
the fucking stick.
It's the big eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she is a great character. I hesitate to say she's a great player because I don't think she ever wins Survivor. I don't think she was in the final. She got 4th place. I don't think she beats any one of those final 3 in Final Tribal. Yeah. But she's a great character. She like same as with Abby Marie is a great character. Elias is a great character.
A low tier villain, not like the main heel or heavy, but like a low tier like B villain.
Exactly. Yeah, she and I guess that's why she was great fodder for Micronesia as a villain. Like, she was that great hurdle that they had to overcome to get to the real villains.
Okay. Yeah. I think I was a little bit more generous with where I placed it.
Yeah.
Because I did keep into account, all right, maybe it's been a while since I've seen it, so I don't remember it as much.
Mm-hmm.
Where did I leave it? I know it's in the 30s.
Vanuatu?
Yeah.
You ranked it at number 38. Yeah, I was very it hurts. It really hurts.
I will give you we'll talk about another video later, but I will give you a revamped list after I'm done with watching all 40 seasons.
I expected.
I can't make any promises on things, but maybe it might go up.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, but guess where Vanuatu is on my list?
I think it was top half.
It is in the top half. I put it as my number 16th season out of 40,
Impressive.
which it beat a lot of seasons here that are considered legendary, in my opinion.
I feel bad because looking at our list, I'd say the only thing that like I wouldn't say anything on my side really suffered. Maybe Gabon, but I admit Gabon is not the best season. I just like some of the characters on there, but
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
kind of
I was a little disappointed in a few of you, especially your Guatemala and Vanuatu. Those were the two that like popped out at me right away. I was like, oh. And I do admit though, Guatemala is worse than Vanuatu. I will
yeah.
give you that.
Oh well, but who knows? We all agree that Fiji ain't that great.
Yeah, Fiji's not very good. And I did notice, even though that you had some of those lower ones, because I put it so high, it got up a little bit, so it wasn't super like. Because even Guatemala got 34th and tied with 33 actually. So
it's not too bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Now,
yeah. Let's go.
This is a big one. It's you.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is pretty much all about one person. We talked. There's a few seasons like this that are very focused around a single person.
Oh yeah.
If you can't tell already, it's Survivor Samoa, and this is the Russell Hantz show.
Yes. It's very honestly. So yeah, I started out with Tocantins, but this was the first one I've seen like from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Because I came in Tocantins like in the merge, like, but yeah, like Russell, I was surprised he made it so far just because we were seeing him like, oh, he was being so villainous and stuff, but he made it all the way to the end, with all his little shenanigans.
Yeah.
And like, even though I was familiar with like the hidden immunity idol and what it meant and things like that, but the fact like like breaking the like being game changing in the sense of like, oh, you can find the idol without the clue. Duh.
Yeah, it was it was surprising he wasn't in Game Changers, honestly. Like, and he didn't even get the call for Game Changers,
which is interesting because there was quite a few people where on the guy's side where he could probably replace.
Oh yeah, I mean, I still think the reason Survivor is still going on is because of Russell Hantz, and I think it starts with this season because he literally made the game have to evolve. Like they had to evolve because of Russell Hantz.
Yeah, definitely. Like I remember seeing stuff of like future seasons being even more like creative with their hints and stuff. Like I remember one season it's just being like pictographs and things for their idols. Not only that, he did have a very he also had a bad luck tribe and was able to overcome it as well. Just people going off left and right. They had like it was either 3 or 4 people going into the merge.
Yeah, it was the FOA 4.
Oh, 4, yeah. Yeah, and also it was another season with 2 medevacs with Russell Swan being. I would say the only characters that really like really stand out to me beside Russell Hantz, but that's just how Dan kind of covers a lot of Island of the Idols with his negativity. That's kind of the same effect of what Russell Hantz had with Samoa, where it's just so centered around him and his impact was so big it overshadows so many different people.
Because he literally did everything in the game. Like, and most of the people kind of let him do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I gotta say, I think those first 3 merged episodes are amazing to watch. Because first off, you got the Fofo 4 managing to convince everyone that they need to trim their fats and take
Yeah.
out Eric, who has a hidden immunity idol. Remember, he
What
gets voted out with an idol at the
with
merge.
it? Yeah.
Then immediately the other tribe realizes, okay, well now we have to get rid of the Fofo 4, so let's get Russell because he was the one orchestrating that Eric blindside. He plays his idol, gets rid of Kelly, and then everyone is now upset at Russell, so obviously they're going to still be targeting Russell for probably the entire time that they're out there now.
Yeah.
And then 444 manages to convince Shambo that she's on the bottom, flips over there, and manages to create a tie vote. John ends up flipping again, or not again, but flips so that way that there isn't a rock draw.
Yeah.
And it's just this crazy, just kind of landslide after that, where it's just like, wow, 3 votes just caused this entire tribe to lose.
It's just how powerful he is, because the 4 made it pretty far together.
Mhm.
I know Jason kind of like fell off. Like before,
he stopped playing. He did 100% stop playing the game.
yeah.
He checked out mentally. He was
Yeah.
just like, Russell would just be like, vote for this person, and he'd be like, okay, Russell, and then he would do it.
Yeah.
And is it the first episode or the second episode when Russell tells Jason that he's going to go look for the hidden immunity idol, and Jason's just like,
I think it
oh,
was
Russell has this weird idea that he's just going to go find the idol.
Yeah.
And then he does it.
Yeah. And the whole like leader thing, because I remember, I forget the dude's name, and I honestly forget his face. I have like a general like blurry vision of a guy with short hair and a beard, but like he was like the leader system when it came to that season. I think it was interesting.
Mm.
Not much really came out of it, but
I think are you talking about Mick?
yeah, Mick.
Yeah, he who makes it to the end. Fun fact, actually. So going into that final tribal council, they were going to vote for Mick instead of Natalie, but Mick didn't do anything for final tribal, whereas Natalie actually convinced people that her game was just as valid as Russell and Mick's. And because of that, everyone was more like wanted to vote for Natalie instead of Mick. So,
well, Mick, you snooze, you lose.
Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of oh geez, cars going outside. A lot of winners are really decided at final tribal. Like that, a lot of people have been declared a winner because their final tribal council, speech was good enough to really warrant them a win.
It's true. Yeah. Sorry, friggin' Facebook has messaged me. I was like,
it's okay. Yeah, I was getting messages also during this.
I know, like I get them occasionally, but then my DM is like, "Oh, you guys will be leveling up," and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "All right, gotta stop." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Samoa. Like I said, I really enjoy Shambo and Russell. Those were the 2 things that kind of like stuck out. And I was a little excited when Russell Swan came back, because you feel bad for Medivacs, because it's like,
I think they should do that again. I think they should make another. I think Captain Season should be for the Medivacs or the people who are kind of screwed that like by a twist or something like that.
I definitely think it's good for pre-mergers, because like I know if I played and I made it very far, or my first time or first 2 times, and then I'm asked, "Oh, you want to do a captain season?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would never do a captain season.
Yeah, like a fans versus favorites, maybe, probably.
Yeah, but that's not even that's you being on a tribe of returnees. I think that's different than already basically saying, hey, these people are different than everyone else.
Yeah, like if it's pre-merge, one, they're more likely to last longer because they're not going to be deemed as big of a threat. They're just going to be, they're still going to be like, oh, well, they're on this season. We want one of us to win. But there's more wiggle room there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Kelly Wentworth shouldn't have come back for Edge of Extinction, for instance, because I think she's never gonna win now. I think she's that like because she had the best captain returning thing in that moment, like of that season. And I think now that she's just such a big threat, like she's going to go into every season now at like what Tony went into Winners at War. Like she's going to have that threat level.
Threat mentality.
Yeah, and so whereas going into because even though she played really great in Second Chance, she still was like, well, I did really bad in San Juan del Sur. And so there was still kind of a balancing act where it's like, yeah, but I am not perfect. And now we've seen her play 2 really good games. So she's got that threat level to her.
Exactly. I mean, and as we know, when it comes to returning seasons, and we talked about, it's all about tribe chemistry and who you're on with and what the theme is.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Okay. Well, I had Samoa at 20, and you had Samoa at 26. Or, no. Oh no, not 26. So that was
around that park.
32.
And part of the reason was, at the end of the day, one person shouldn't have to make a season, but at the same time, he is pretty good. So that's why I was still like high. Like, I don't think Samoa was a bad season by any means. It's just when I was like going and comparing between one season and another, I'm like, oh, well, like this guy or this season had one really good person and a couple of, like hidden gems. While as some of these seasons have like 3, 5 really good people or like and a bunch of better gems.
Yeah. I will say, I think if you take Russell Hantz out of the season and put in an average player, this season's like in the bottom 5. Like I feel like it's almost like Nicaragua if Nicaragua added Russell Hantz to it. Like if you put Russell Hantz into Nicaragua, I think that it would be very different.
It would be totally.
Yeah. And so this season is really just that it's Nicaragua, but we also have one of the best players to ever play Survivor, or at least characters wise.
I mean, he is a good player. It's just like,
well, he just doesn't have his social game.
Legacy kills. Well, I mean, you can make up for a bad social game because like on one side, yes, he burned pretty much every bridge to get to the end. However, he was still able to coax people in with it.
Yeah. And I know we haven't gotten to it. We're going to cover it next week, but he does have one of the best social moves in Survivor, which is the Tyson vote in Heroes versus Villains. That's a social gameplay. That's not like he gets in good enough with Tyson to convince him that they are going to vote Parvati, so he needs to vote Parvati, so they can actually vote him. Like that's a social move.
Definitely. Like he's a smart character. All right. So now, even though we almost missed 2 of them, now is Worlds Apart.
Yeah.
White collar, blue collar, red collar, / no.
No collar.
You give them all colors, and then what I liked about this season a lot was this was also one of the first seasons I watched when I was like out of high school. It was also technically one of the first seasons I was rejected from because I didn't bother with the Blood versus Water one because it was like, oh, I don't want anyone hindering my game. But I was totally rooting for like, no collar just by the concept because I'm like, yeah, like that's the way to live. That's more of an actor's mindset. And it gave us a lot of great people, not just, like Joe, but Mama C, who I really enjoy, gave us Mike,
Yeah.
who I think he had a very, very underdog scenario from someone who you wouldn't typically think would have to be in an underdog scenario.
Yeah.
Um,
He has alpha male qualities like bleeding out of him. Like,
oh yeah,
but because of that, that puts a target on his back.
exactly, exactly. Like, um, also we had Joaquin, who I thought he was going to make it far in the game. He seemed kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of great people.
I think Grodny was a great character as well. I think he was hilarious. I know that there's controversy. There is definitely controversy of the season,
Yeah,
following around three people, but I could definitely tell that production tried to keep Rodney not as much as a front of it, and they kind of gave it all to Will and Dan. They kind of
yeah,
tried to pin them on the controversy. Because I don't think Rodney was doing anything out of it for ill will. I think it was more strategy for him.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas you can kind of tell that Will and Dan did not like Shireen at all.
yeah. Well, I mean, also Shireen, she was just like she was fun, she was kooky, and unfortunately, sometimes that's our society. Sometimes, you know, bullies or
Yeah.
kind of like gives less value to people who are like that.
Yeah.
Which was unfortunate for her in that season. And then, but, you know, I mean, if you go through any season of Survivor, there's always going to be some like moments.
Mhm.
But however, when it comes to bullying, that's
Mhm.
never okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say this is also a season I recently watched too, like within like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so I was enjoying myself. Like I wasn't, even when it got to like those points where I was like, ugh, like I would still be like, okay, I want to watch the next one still.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is not what I felt about Island of the Idols with their merge episode. I kind of wanted to just move on to the next season. I wanted just them to stop the season and be like, okay, here's Winners at War already.
Yeah. Yeah. With season 30, I feel like it didn't necessarily get too bad, which
Mm-hmm.
was good. Um, and I feel like it was a thing where because it wasn't treated as bad, um, it didn't kind of like it didn't like overwhelm the season where it did in season 39.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's why like it took me a little bit of a second to like actually remember what you were talking about. Because like I don't feel it doesn't overshadow.
Yeah, it didn't control the season. It was moments kind of sprinkled throughout the season, but
Yeah,
it wasn't like we have to make the entire storyline of the season about this.
yeah,
And just Mike's immunity wins. I mean, it's so fun to see him win every challenge.
yeah. It was cool, um, especially since I didn't want a blue collar to win going
Mhm.
into it. Um,
Yeah.
but Mike turned me around. I was like, yeah, you know what, Mike, you're kind of cool.
Really, I didn't want the white collars to win. I was okay with either anyone
Well,
else but the
my
white collars.
mentality is back then was blue collar. Oh, that's like working class. I don't want to be working class. White collar, at least they have high pursuits and are trying to be rich. No collar, that's where I live. That's
Yeah,
freedom. Um,
yeah. Yeah, well, I grew up in a mountain town, so blue collar people are who I've been around. And then
yeah,
I'm an actor, so of course I'm going to be also rooting for the no collars.
I think also my grandma worked at an office and stuff, so like
Uh-huh.
I kind of understood that, or like also I think like the money thing, or like, oh, they're smart, they'll know things business wise, they'll be better social players, which they did give us. One, Mama Scene, Joaquin.
Yeah.
I feel
And,
like if
let's not forget Tyler too. Tyler, I think, gets forgotten a lot in the season, but he
yeah,
was a big thread of that season.
he was a sleeper threat a little bit. Like,
Not even sleeper. They were calling him out like he was the biggest threat besides Mike for a good chunk of it.
we're talking about white collar redhead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I didn't. I say like his game wasn't as flashy as like, or I don't remember his game that flashy. You clearly know more because you've
Yeah.
just
Well, yeah, it's not a flashy game, but he was controlling the votes.
yeah. I did think he was going to win at some point. But just another reason why I think it's like a really good season is because of these people.
Mhm.
Also, when we talk about first boots, so is another one a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, that one of the worst lies I gotta say is from So Kim. So Kim and Joaquin, like they created a neutral option at the beginning of the game for no reason. Like, when has Survivor ever said there's a good option, a evil option, and a neutral option? And also if you go for the neutral option, why not just go for the good option? Like, you're not like, why?
It doesn't. Yeah, it's you kind of just have to play the game. And being Switzerland, what does that do?
Yeah, so
Especially, you have to keep in mind that other tribes are going to face the same thing, whether you know that or not.
Yeah,
they're going to talk at the merge.
Yeah. Oh, and also, you were saying that there was that one fire making where they kept breaking the flints. This is the season with Ronnie and Mama C. I just remembered now.
Yeah.
Because when he said, I was like, I just watched that. What season was it from? And it's this one.
Yeah, because I kind of remember Rodney being a little bit like disappointed every time he.
Yeah, they kept breaking Flint over and over again. Because they were just so into it. It was.
It's a fight for $1 million.
Yeah. I mean, none of them were winning. Like, Mike was winning. Whoever got there was getting runner up.
Honestly, when it came to Mama C, she was one of the ones I was surprised that did not make it on to second chance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, legit. Especially since it was just following the hype of the season.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem was she wasn't allowed to campaign because she was in that season. Whereas Shirin and Joe, because they went out early, they were then allowed to campaign for those next few weeks. Whereas Mama C wasn't able to, so she kind of had to just hope that people would throw her votes, even though she might have won.
I mean, fair enough. I know for me, like, I didn't look at any campaigns. I was just like, all right, who would I like to see back?
Yeah.
Or see for the first time.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, Mike got the votes. If he lost, he would have been in second chance.
Which is crazy because I was like, whose place did he steal?
I know, right? I don't know who it is. I don't think they ever said.
No, and I don't think they would ever really like.
I mean, it's got. I feel like it's probably an old school person. I feel like an old, like maybe an Andrew Savage.
I don't think it was Andrew. I think it was because when I was rewatching Australia, Jeff Varner did not really stick out to me, and this was after I knew. Well, it was before Game Changers, but like this was like the first time like I was watching Outback. And I was like, wait, we brought him back? He really did not stand out to me at all.
Yeah. Well, he was only known for that one moment of stepping down for peanut butter.
Exactly. So like that's why I was a little surprised. Like after watching that, I was like, wait, so it was definitely like old school status that brought him back. So I think he probably might have been one of the ones.
Yeah, because I'm assuming it was probably an old school person that took the spots, because I feel like a lot of people voting probably wanted to see some of those new people. Like, everyone from Cagayan was an instant lock. Like, they could have brought David Sampson the first boot of Cagayan, and he probably would have made it. Like, That's how much people love that season.
Yeah, it was We'll talk about that
We'll
next.
talk about it when we get to it.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of 24, Kagiyan.
Yeah. Subduing
JK.
expectations. All right, yeah.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, no. Kagiyan is not our 24th on our
Yeah.
list.
What is it?
um wait, so where you put Worlds Apart at or
So I
oh,
think
you
it
put it
was.
at 22. You really liked Worlds
I
Apart.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
I put it as my 29.
I think yeah, it's definitely like a 20s season.
Yeah.
But all right.
Is it your turn to take it or mine?
No, you're evens.
I'm evens.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we got South Pacific, which I'm a little surprised it made it this far. You must have given a lot of votes, right? You must have put it pretty high.
I gave it a little high because one, I real I think it had a really cool pre-merge. I
Mm-hmm.
think one, it's Cochran's first season. It was
Mm-hmm.
like the first Survivor contestant I could truly like relate to at this point in time. The whole like one also I really enjoyed Coach from what I saw from Toka and Heroes versus Villains. And like there was a lot of cool things. Also the Redemption Island thing was cool. Um Ozzy asking to get voted out so they can maintain the numbers when they get back in
Mm-hmm.
because like he was the only one that could take down what's her face,
Christine, I believe was her name.
Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like moves like that, it gave us a nice little
Yeah.
showmance, like one that didn't like end in flames
Mm-hmm.
pre-merge, which it usually does with
Yeah.
Whitney and forgetting his name. Is it Keith?
Keith, yeah.
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 Yay, I remember names.
Yeah. um,
And
yeah.
like I feel like there was a lot of good stuff in there. Granted, it did go to like a little bit of a debunk or a little bit of bonking,
Mm-hmm.
but it also gave us another good B villain, and it kind of just extended the legacy of the Hans family. Like
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, I mean that there were highlights in the season. I didn't watch it and think it was a bad season. But I also didn't watch it and say this is great. Like and the thing is I watched Caramoan first before this season. So I knew Cochran from that season. And then when I kind of went and watched this one, I was like, huh, not really like that this Cochran wasn't as good as Caramoan Cochran.
oh yeah, he grew a lot from
Yeah.
his first time
Yeah,
out.
and so when I watch these seasons, I'm not judging by I like this character because it's something because of future seasons or previous seasons. I try to look at it very much as this season alone, and a lot of characters that have returned or return in this time, I think were less palatable and less enjoyable than their previous iterations or future iterations.
I mean, I feel when it comes to me doing when it comes to me like doing ones where they've played multiple times, I kind of go into the mentality of like, where are they in this point in their story? Because my one roommate that's going to be moving in, I talked to him like, oh, if we were going to introduce it to our other roommate, what seasons? He was like, oh yeah, well, I would show him like season 1 through 8, or maybe show him Micronesia after that. I'm like, but why would you show him Micronesia and not like like when you only have one contestant that would be returning? And he's like, well, some of them have better stories in Micronesia. But I'm like, yeah, but you get better weight of the vote offs if you see everything beforehand. Or like, yeah, but sometimes they did better in the original series, which
Mm-hmm.
makes it all the more devastating if they go home early. So
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes when I have those emotional moments, I'm thinking of it, or like when I'm thinking of like quality of like, because that person's backstory, not their future, because obviously it hasn't happened yet,
Mm-hmm.
influences how they play the game because they have that experience, or they've had that like torch snuff or they've won before, so they think their shit don't
Mhm.
stink.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
just think so let's go down the line of people who have returned from the season, or have been in and the returnees of the season. So Coach and Ozzy, Coach's best season by far is Tocantins. Like
yeah,
I don't think it's even a debate there.
I mean,
Um, I think
I
this was his worst season personally.
no,
Like as a player, he played his best game, but
I
he
think he did
wasn't.
better because he had. I think he did better this season. Maybe not as in Tocantins, but I think H&V because one, he got farther. I do think he was.
I don't know. I can't judge someone's game if they make it far. Like I still think a lot of people who've made it to the final tribal council are bad players.
Well, I do think I have to rewatch, but I just do not. I remember after watching, I was like, he should have won, not Sophie.
I don't know. I really hated that he literally used religion to force his tribe to stay together.
What?
Like that's what he did. Like that like there's no other way to really boil it down other than like the entire season was focused on religion, and then because of that no one felt like they could flip. So then it forced Cochrane to be the flipper.
Uh,
Um and
so
it basically just became and then became a pagonging, and like who wants to watch pagongings?
okay, so I'm starting to piece together stuff of high school while this is happening. So
uh,
I don't remember a lot of religious stuff because this is when I was very angsty about religion. So
mhm.
no, I'm like agnostic now, and I have no ill will towards any religion. But like when we're in high school, we're angsty. We are like, oh yeah, I was raised this way, and all these rules. Whoops. Anywho, so that's probably why I don't remember it as much.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
never.
if when you rewatch it, that is the entire season. What like imagine how big of an impact Dan is on Island of the Idols or Russell is on Samoa. Religion is that big on South Pacific.
Uh,
And so because of that it kind of it almost has a cult like feel to it. Like everyone is kind of acting like they're in a cult. And
all right.
they're drinking Coach's Kool-Aid.
I do remember Whitney and Keith's thing, and I think one of the things I like from it and why it's one of my favorite showmances is because it was a luxury item and it was like given to the other one. It was like, here, have my Bible while um, you're out here. Like it was something nice like that.
For what?
I think it
I think
was
you're mixing this up with Redemption Island because
Amleth.
Matt had a Bible, and he read it with Andrea.
Oh shit. Like
Yeah,
what?
so I yeah they're back to back and they have the same twist. Um, yeah, no.
I'm
Keith
back.
and Whitney, you should not say that they are one of the best showmances because Whitney was married when she went out there.
What? I
Yeah,
did not.
and then she gets together with Keith.
Shit.
Yeah,
They even went on Amazing
not
Race
a
together.
not a good showman's. Yeah, the another big controversy of this season. I feel like you're going to have to retweak some of your lists because I don't think you realize some of the controversies in some of these seasons.
If it wasn't in the show, I don't remember it that much.
Yeah, no. It became kind of a big thing. It's just like, should we allow like our spouses and stuff to go out there because this happened. Oh geez.
Okay, we're bad.
Yeah. Oh, you're a little off frame now.
You see my
There,
bad.
there it goes. Okay. Um. So yeah. This was definitely a season with a lot of controversy around it. And I think it was just some of the worst that we've seen some of the players. Sure, Ozzy and Coach, this was probably one of the closest they've been to winning, but that doesn't mean that they were better like players because like we kind of
uh,
didn't have great players to begin with either.
oh, me going through this list. I'm a big Survivor fan. also me going through this list. What, that happened?
Yeah. I mean, I still put it at number 33. I didn't put it at the lowest of lows. But you put it as your number 17th season out of 40.
Since all right, I have a much better memory on the next one.
Good, yeah.
So let's go into that before. Go wrong. Go wrong is number 23. I enjoyed well, I mean, I like the bronze, brains, and beauty like aspect of it. And I think like it was a little bit of like nudging us back in that direction because Cagayan was so like well received. One thing going into it, I didn't watch a lot of Big Brother, but one of the seasons I did was the one where Caleb was in. And so like I already had someone to kind of like root for within it. And I feel it gave us so many like great people to like be like, oh man, for starters, Aubrey, a little bit of an underdog, and like played a really great game. I know she's one of your faves.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite modern day female survivors.
Oh yeah, definitely one of the best. And then we have stuff like with Jason and Ty and I forget who the big guy was, but
Scott.
Yeah. And like, the whole like super idol thing, and then like that like little not really alliance. And then I just kind of like thought it was a really nice I think it was a nice season and introduced us to a lot of people, some twist. Yeah, it had the whole thing where 3 people got medevac. That's literally like a sixth of their cast.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the biggest downside of this season.
Yeah.
I think if those medevacs didn't happen, I think this is much higher because I actually think that the characters and the gameplay of the season was like really
Pretty
high
strong.
level. It was very high level, but the fact that like 3 episodes were centered around medevacs, it's kind of hard to like place it.
You can't ignore it. They literally broke the whole. Their Survivor, one of they're spectacular when it comes to like you not seeing the cameras.
Yeah.
Like for the longest time, I wondered how they did it, and then like there was one behind the scenes thing where it showed kind of like how they do it. They have like tests, like they kind of have like run throughs with like set design people wearing the same colors, things like that. This was like the first time, maybe in the earlier seasons they kind of broke it a little, but like this is the first time in recollection where they kind of like broke the whole like, oh, there are no cameras and stuff, and we saw people like like we saw cameras all over, and people kind of like breaking that kind of like, oh, reality TV kind of like thing where, oh, we're just like in with the story and the cameramen aren't really there. But like this was the first time where they broke all that because the heat stroke scene was like so intense.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's an iconic moment, but not necessarily for the best of reasons.
No.
Because like even as a viewer, you stop watching it for entertainment. You are now concerned about these people who are out there.
Yes. Like in the back of our heads, we know they're going to be okay, but it's still like rough to see.
Yeah. Well, because there is a chance that they're not okay. Like that. Like what happens if they either to have long-lasting impact into their lives, or they don't make it. Like what happens? What would Survivor do in those situations?
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we never really have
that. Never happens. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's sorry, roommates are being loud. Anywho, fuck, lost my train of thought. Yeah, we don't want people getting hurt on the show. And I mean, hell, it was in the promo. Like they had very, very like dramatic music, the do the whole like brutality of it. But
Mhm.
um
Yeah. Well, it was.
despite
I think it was even announced that this season had the most medevacs.
yeah,
Pre them going in. They like let us know. Hey, so there's gonna be like a lot of people going down this season.
yeah, and it was it was sucky, especially well, especially fuck, how do I keep forgetting names? Ice Cream Man,
Neil.
Neil. Like, you know, he was excited. He was even joking about it. And it was uh I'm sorry, Joe.
It's
Uh
okay.
it's like,
um. Yeah.
you know, like and then like a few people got checked out too, but it just kind of was like he was the one where it seemed like too bad and he had to go,
Hmm.
which was sad. And he got fucking voted off of the jury.
Yeah, I never want to see that twist coming again. I never want to see. I like it's the worst thing to take away someone's only ability in the game is that jury vote. Like that's something they've been spending so much time trying to recollect information and make a right decision and all this stuff. And I guarantee you he was trying to create his case for why Aubrey should win. And I don't know if that would have helped, but I do know that a lot of people didn't know Aubrey's game when they went for the vote. Like they like it wasn't explained enough for them. So they
Yeah.
voted for Michelle because, they thought that Aubrey was just kind of a bitch.
And I mean, Michelle's game was flashier in the end.
Hmm.
And, you know, when your biggest ally is no longer on the jury,
Hmm.
that could have vouched for you because I
Yeah.
remember if we're talking back to Samoa, Eric was the one that kind of like vouched, was like, went to the jury and was like, you know, wait, you know, like she actually played a better game, or like kind of the
Uh,
same thing with Boston Rob in
uh,
Redemption Island, where
yeah.
talked to the jury and was like, listen, this man played an incredible game.
Hmm.
Your vote should go to him. Those little interactions can save you if you have your biggest cheerleader still on the jury because they're looking out for you.
Yeah, exactly. So if like imagine Neil still be on the jury and being able to probably start or be one of the first ones to really say something. I think that that would have changed
It would have
people's
swayed votes.
it would have changed people's view on Aubrey. Um but the fact that we didn't get that kind of ruins Aubrey's game, which is I guess a fault of Aubrey's game is that she needed someone else to explain her game for her. Um
Yeah,
so
I mean, yeah,
it's
but
one of those
no,
tough things.
yeah, it's like it's a tough thing to do because you don't want to be like too flashy that you become a threat, but you don't want to be, you know, like so unflashy that no one really knows or no one really
Yeah.
appreciates.
Yeah.
Because one person, he kind of gave the best example, even though if we're talking about controversy, he's number one on the list.
Mhm.
Mike Skupin
Yeah.
said, like, when you're at Tribal Final, you know everything that you've done to get there. You've gone through this journey. You know all the adversity or like challenges. It's your job to relate that to the jury, and sometimes it doesn't truly come across as like
Mhm.
showing us you are as worthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um so so yeah, that's that was Co Wrong. I have Co Wrong placed at 19 and you have it on 27. So I think it's a little better. I could see myself though putting it down a little bit.
I mean, there were other factors. I mean, I think one of the things was the three people getting medevaced. Like when it comes to making a list, you have to nitpick a little bit, and I think that
Mhm.
was one of the nitpicks,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But
Yeah.
it's still a great season. I
Yeah.
believe
Yeah, I agree.
all that. All right. So I don't know about you, but what's number 22?
We got Game Changers.
Yeah. This one was, it's one of the most, if we're talking, if Survivor had a season, and that season was Game Changers, if it was like a Star Wars movie, it'd be The Last Jedi, where it's very, very divisive. It subdues a lot of expectations, and it just kind of questions quality a little bit. I still think it's a good season, almost on the verge of great. It's just there's a few things that are like, a lot of great people went home early. But on the flip side, yeah, there was that, but there was also so many crazy freaking things that happened, like the whole Malcolm vote off, the Suri vote off, and then Lucina winning in a very, very like cold cut, like this is how I'm going to do it, and very, very great gameplay. Like, there's so many great things about it, but it's
but what really I think hampers the season is half the people on the season shouldn't have been on the season.
Yeah.
And the fact is like almost all of them make the merge. And
I think that was the biggest thing.
Yeah. It's just I think the only one out of the ones who shouldn't have made it who goes home pre-merge is Caleb. Everyone else kind of stays around and then is just voted off at the merge. And it's like, it's a season, like when you have an all-star season. At this point, we had 3 all-star seasons that, name alone, if you were a Survivor fan, you would be like, oh, that person did this great move, or this person had this great moment, and oh, they were so good on their season. And then you got Game Changers, and then you were like, who's Haley again? Who's Sierra Dawn Thomas?
I legit had to remind myself what season she was from.
Yeah.
Actually, what season was she from? Because
she was from Worlds Apart. She was on season 30.
See? Was she on? Was she on Blue Collar?
She was on No Collar. Yeah. Haley Ford was on No Collar.
No, I remember Haley. I'm talking about
Sierra.
Other one.
Oh yeah, she was on Blue Collar.
Yeah. I did not remember.
Yeah, what did she do in her season? Because I watched it and I still at the end was like, what did she do?
I don't know.
She didn't do anything. She was there. Like that and like they brought back a person who got a purple edit on the season. For this. And it's like, but it's so I don't know. I think also them calling it Game Changers, you expect to see,
you hold it to a higher standard.
Yeah, if they just called it an All Stars or something else that was just like, these are people coming back, I think it would have been. I think people wouldn't have been as upset, but people were upset almost from the get-go with the season.
Yeah. I still remember the Facebook post I made after the first episode. We lost Tony, we lost Sierra, the better Sierra.
Yeah.
And I was just left like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, we lost 2 of the biggest characters of the season right away.
Yeah. And I feel like there was a lot of like, okay, this person's gone. Maybe I can root for this person. Oh, they're gone. Maybe, could it be Cerise's turn? Oh no, she got voted out.
She didn't get voted out. The game just decided.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I feel that's the tough thing. Or like, on the flip side of that, there were so many like iconic things. We had a really great winner. And there were some people, granted, they didn't last long, but it was still cool to see them play again. It was nice to see Sandra get voted off, where she's saying, "Don't do it, Jeff."
Yeah.
Like finally see the queen get
Yeah.
dethroned.
I wish that she didn't come out for the season. I wish that she saved it until Winners at War.
Yeah,
Because
because
I think that this really lowered her value and made her like, because
made her
before she was a legend, she was 100% one of the legends. This season made her like kind of on the edge of being a legend. Like she was still a legend, but like she was ready to lose it. And then Winners at War, I think, honestly, kind of ruined her reputation.
Hmm. Yeah, like I was surprised when I saw her in the thing because I'm like, why
Mhm.
would you already won twice? Why
Yeah,
would you sully that?
yeah,
I would get, yeah, Winners at War, I totally understand, but uh, um but also like another thing we can't ignore is the whole Jeff
yeah,
Varner Zeke controversy. Um, it was it was bad. Um, it's something where when we're talking about reputations, Jeff is now the person that has played is the person that only person that has played 3 times and has never made it to jury.
mhm,
And I think with his actions, it was kind of deserved
yeah,
to have that reputation.
yeah. The only thing that I can really say that it's a good thing that this only lasted that tribal council.
Yeah,
And then even when they
it
brought it
was
back
resolved.
in the next episode, they were trying to make it a good thing. They weren't like they weren't it wasn't a it was trying to get rid of the negative lights. Um, Whereas, and I know we keep talking about Dan from Island of Idols, but that's just the newest version of this big thing
That's
that kind of
yeah.
it was that shadow for the entire season, and they never made it a good thing. They never tried to find a light
There
at the
was
end of
no
the
way
tunnel.
to really make it a good thing, and it just
Ex-
kept going and going.
yeah, well,
And
it would have been a good thing if Dan got voted out there and Kelly
early,
was able to articulate that now she can finally play the game the way she wants
yeah,
to. Like that's the only way, and but because that doesn't happen, you know. Yeah. So I had Game Changers at 26, and Ryan, you had it at 19.
because in spite of that, I still think there were some really good moments.
Yeah.
Even if it was a little crazy, I still liked it. Also, it might have been when I watched it, I was in a rough place, and that
Hmm.
was one of the only things that was really giving me something to look forward to.
Hmm.
So that could have
Yeah.
gave it a little nudge, but I still think
Yeah.
it's a good season.
Yeah.
Just not the
Well,
best All Stars.
yeah. I mean, I know we haven't gotten to it yet, but I actually think Game Changers is slightly better than All Stars.
I can understand why, and I
It's
mean,
very slight, and it's because All Stars
there
has the better name recognition and bigger characters, but gameplay is just abysmal. Like it really felt like they, you know how our All Stars, it felt for Brant Steele, it just felt like they were out there just kind of doing that whatever. It
yeah,
felt like that's kind of what All Stars was, except Boston Rob was the only one out there playing.